I know there's already a great video covering Batman's history, but Alex Lennon's masterwork only focused on stories taking place in the present time, leaving out how DC's various reboots changed Batman's early years. In DC Comics, reboots never really start over completely from scratch. Old stories get folded into the new continuity in interesting ways, slightly altered from how they were originally published. What old stories count and how they've been altered sometimes only gets revealed through brief flashbacks, winks, or mere lines of dialogue, requiring someone interested in putting together the puzzle of Batman's current biography to be aware of every single past comic and to know what counts. Although writers have free reign to reference anything, this doesn't mean everything counts, but that everything could count. If you literally read every Batman comic book from the latest reboot to today, noting all the changes of season, topical references, references to time, editorial notes, character aging, and character development, you wind up with a mix of contradictions. But if you whittle that down to form the best possible combination of these contradictions, you'll be able to find a semi-concrete timeline. In this video, I want to showcase the scientific method of looking at Batman's fictional canon to figure out answers to questions such as, what year was Bruce Wayne born in? How old is he in 2024? And finally, when did he die? To answer these questions, I'll be showcasing the timeline building catechism method used by the Real Batman Chronology project, an amazing website dedicated to this never-ending task. Although I am a contributor there, I will majorly quote Colin Kosher, the founder and mastermind behind it all. Before we begin, what was DC's latest reboot? The most common answer is the 2016's DC Rebirth Initiative. But that was actually just a relaunch, meaning most books began on a brand new issue 1, but there was no actual reboot told as part of the story. Such a reboot wouldn't come until the understated 2017 Superman Reborn, an event in which the New 52 timeline fused together with the pre-New 52 timeline, creating a mix of the two with some brand new stories set in the past. But let's start at the beginning. Bruce Wayne was born on February 1980 to Thomas and Martha Wayne. Like his father, Bruce was raised a Christian, but Martha wasn't religious and wouldn't attend church with them. At the time Bruce was born, the Wayne butler wasn't Alfred, but his father, Jarvis Pennyworth. However, when Bruce took his first steps, Alfred was visiting, and Bruce walked into Alfred's arms. Alfred was an interesting guy who joined the SAS and fought in the Falkland War as a way to rebel against his father always being too busy with the Waynes. When Bruce was 2, Alfred was recruited into becoming a secret Dark Knight for London who would serve the world in the shadows. However, he backed out of the program when he found out it required his father Jarvis to die. When Bruce was 3, Martha became pregnant with a boy, but after she started making waves against the mayor's corruption, she was targeted by a secret organization called the Court of Owls. There was a contemporary evolution of an ancient cult known as the Bat Tribe, which existed as far back as 3300 BCE. They worked for and worshipped Barbatos, the demon god of an evil mirror version of the multiverse called the Dark Multiverse. Barbatos carefully guided his minions for over 40,000 years, manipulating certain events to ensure that Batman is created, while biding his time. His plan was to turn Batman's body into a portal to the Dark Multiverse, through which he'd be able to invade. In 1983, the Court of Owls caused a traffic accident while Martha was out in her car, and she lost her baby. Shortly after, the court killed Jarvis. When Bruce turned 4, Alfred became the new butler of the Wayne family. Upon first stepping into the mansion, he stared at the clock his father kept winding instead of caring for him, and he angrily smashed it. To his surprise, he found a pile of letters his father had written for him inside. Tearfully, he realized that Jarvis had never sent them so that Alfred would be able to leave the nest and become his own person. Bruce's childhood was filled to the brim with foreshadowing, almost obnoxiously so. The kid couldn't just play chess, he was learning how to think ahead. He couldn't learn horse riding, he was besting his fears. He couldn't play cops and robbers, he had to always pick the role of the robber for the irony of it. If he went to the library, he became fixated with books about bats. He couldn't fight to keep his eyelids open when he was falling asleep. He had to do it with the same tenacity he would use to fight crime. If you were to read The Three Little Piggies to Bruce, his takeaway was the wolf should have been better prepared and that he would have been better prepared. The kid bumped into his first serial killer at 7 years old. Bruce's childhood friends would either become supervillains or superheroes. Bruce committed his first vigilante act on his 6th birthday when he snuck out of his room during the night to open his gifts. Bruce insisted on making his father read him a disturbing Russian folktale in which a group of animals fell into a hole and had to eat each other to survive. Thomas hated the book and wanted to get a new one, but Martha had eternal faith that Bruce could see the horrors and still dream of a better world. They had no idea Bruce kept asking for that same story because he hoped Thomas would change the ending one night and let the animals come out of the pit. He knew it was impossible to beat the animals' odds, but Bruce couldn't give up hope. When Bruce fell asleep, Thomas knelt by his bedside and swore by the spirits of his parents to protect Bruce's life and to spend the rest of his life warring against anything that might cause him pain. When the Waynes attended a masquerade ball, Thomas dressed as a bat for it, an image that would stick in Bruce's subconscious. Batman certainly wouldn't be Gotham's first vigilante. In the 40s, the city was protected by the original Green Lantern, and during Bruce's childhood, Gotham was haunted by a vigilante who called himself the Reaper and brutally murdered criminals, although he disappeared shortly after. Bruce fell into a hole in the yard, discovering the Batcave. Thomas helped Bruce out of the hole by telling Bruce to see himself climbing out of it in his head, a moment that would teach Bruce to be a man of plans, and Bruce would later consider this to be the real birth of Batman. What Bruce didn't know is that he wasn't the first Wayne to find the cave, as it had been used by his grandfather Richard as the trophy room for all his affairs, hanging up panties, pictures, and other trophies. Due to the amount of bats in it, Richard called himself the first Batman, but his wife murdered him for his unfaithfulness in 1961. 1985 was the year Selina Kyle, aka Catwoman, was born. As soon as she was, though, her parents abandoned her in a dumpster during Christmas Day, like she was nothing more than a stray cat. Later, she began living in the Wayne home for orphaned children, where she became fascinated by a portrait of Bruce hung on the wall. At 8 years old, on June 26, the tragedy we all know about happened and Bruce's parents were killed by a common criminal named Joe Chill. However, there are a few noteworthy details, like the fact that the event was witnessed by a Bruce Wayne from an alternate reality, who fought with the time-traveling hero known as Booster Gold, and whose gunfire drew the Waynes into the alley that would eventually doom them. Also present there was a time-traveling Harley Quinn and an alternate reality Harley. Barbados, the demon god, was also present, and guided Bruce towards the path of darkness. 26 years later, Bruce would find out the Court of Owls had been involved, as they were coordinating with the forces of hell from the Spawn universe to steal Bruce's soul. They hid a cosmic device that could breach the barrier between universes and revive the dead in one of the pearls of Martha's collar. When they needed them back, they manipulated Joe Chill into killing her, and the court stole the pearls. Arriving upon the crime scene were rookie cop James Gordon, Alfred, and family friend Dr. Leslie Thompson, who would become a surrogate mother for Bruce. After the tragedy, Bruce lost his capacity to believe in any deities, as none had saved his father. On his parents' grave, he made an oath to spend his life warring against criminals. Hearing the news, Selina felt sympathy for Bruce at her orphanage, as neither of them had mommies or daddies now. Eventually, Selina would escape from the orphanage and start living in the sewers under the care of Sewer King, who apparently exists. In the following weeks, Bruce refused to accept it was a random act and began his first case as a detective by trying to prove the Court of Owls was real and that they had killed his parents. His investigation led him to an abandoned house, where he got locked inside for a week and he went into a coma. After that, he learned never to let his emotions guide him on a case. In 1990, at 9 years old, Bruce fired all Wayne Manor staff, save for Alfred. At 10 years old, he asked for a katana dueling blade. Alfred got him a wakizashi, which seemed more appropriate for his age. So began Bruce's history of distrusting everyone he knew. At this age, Bruce began feeling suicidal. He paid a homeless man to pretend to be Alfred and signed some papers so the doctors of Arkham would give him shock treatment until he stopped being himself, but he called it off at the last moment. Later, he actually slit his wrist. After his blood started pouring out, he prayed, but when no one answered, he realized he was alone, as everybody in Gotham, and he knew the concepts of dignity and kindness. Giving up his life, he let the razor fall and swore by the spirits of his parents to avenge their deaths by spending the rest of his life warring on all criminals. Bruce began fighting crime in 1991 by beating up bullies. Bruce's first crush was a girl named Becky Muldoon. He secretly wrote a love song about her, but the teacher read it to the entire class, thinking it was his poetry assignment. Because it was written to be sung to the tune of the Bee Gees, that became Bruce's nickname for the rest of the year. Bruce's heart moved on. In the following year, he briefly dated Zatanna. He also tried out dating the twin daughters of a mob family, Erin and Shannon McKillen, but he didn't have his first kiss until his stint with a girl named Adrienne Williams. In 1997, Bruce dated Julie Madison, who, historically, was Batman's first printed girlfriend. At this point, he decided to become a cop, but his friend Dana explained to him no police force would let one of the world's richest men walk the streets with a gun. Plus, the world didn't need another angry cop. Bruce decided to travel the world and seek the best living masters in every field. In preparation, he stopped attending classes, knowing he wouldn't fail due to all the money he gave his school, and engaged in underground fights. When Alfred caught him, Bruce was forced to start seeing a therapist called Hugo Strange, but he only really agreed to do it to uncover the fact that Hugo was brainwashing his friend Dana to steal her money. After calling the cops on him, Bruce left the country. Throughout the next 4 years, Bruce trained with all sorts of heroes and villains, including Master Intimidator Jason Blood and Norse demigod Santa Claus, aka Kris Kringle. A particular teacher was Dr. Daniel Captio, who taught Bruce to fragment his mind into different backup personalities, while secretly implanting a post-hypnotic trigger word into Bruce's mind that would cause Bruce to make sure Captio was safe whenever he heard it. Other teachers included Master Thief Grey Shadow, Master Tracker Henry Ducard, Master Martial Artist Kirigi and Richard Dragon, Master of Disguise Avery Obolonsky, Master Marksman Luca Jungo, Master Boxer Wildcat, Master Escapist Thaddeus Brown, Master Magicians Zatara and his daughter Zatanna, Master Knife Wielder Tommy Tavan, Master Assassin David Kane, Master Stuntwoman Sky Spider, and finally the immortal Ra's al Ghul, a bit originally told in the Batman Begins movie. Bruce also met Ra's daughter Talia, who underwent a training much like Bruce's and would eventually be the mother of his son. In the process of his training, Bruce met Koa Khan, another young man following the same path as Bruce, who would become his rival student and eventually rival superhero, using the name Ghostmaker. However, Koa had no qualms with killing, so their friendship didn't last. During his training, Bruce also met a Chinese, earlier analog of the Justice League, who granted him the superpower to disappear in darkness for a brief period. To Bruce's surprise, his parents' killer was caught while he was away, so he paid Joe Chill a visit in prison, where it took all his willpower to resist killing him. After that, Bruce's training was over, and he was ready to begin crime fighting. Year 1. The first 3 years of Batman's career are markedly dark in tone. In the first 1939 comics, Batman acted solo only for 11 months before Robin's debut, but when modern writers began retelling retrospective stories about Batman's early years, it was too tempting not to make them very down-to-earth, and to introduce most of his villains before Robin came on the scene and cheered everything up. The current origin of Batman is a mixture of his 2 previous retellings, but I'll walk you through how these 2 combine. First off, after arriving from his training abroad, Bruce's first public vigilante act was an attack on the Red Hood criminal gang which was haunting Gotham. In his absence, his uncle Philip had been running Wayne Enterprises, advised by Edward Nygma, aka the Riddler. Nygma led Philip down dubious endeavors and got him blackmailed into joining the Red Hood gang. Later, Bruce disguised himself as a homeless army vet and headed to the rough East End neighborhood to test if he could battle crime. There, he fought Selina Kyle, a sex worker, and met her for the first time. He would fend off Selina, but got shot by cops and only managed to make it home in a very wounded state. Right when Bruce was going to give up his crusade, a bat crashed through his window, and Bruce swore to his father that he would become a bat. Unknown to Bruce, the bat was none other than the Dark Multiverse's evil god Barbados. Plus, there were several other factors influencing Bruce's seemingly absurd decision to play dress-up. Firstly, Earth was visited in the Paleozoic era by Al, god of superheroes, who infused the planet with the idea of superheroes. Second, Gotham City was built upon a human sacrifice to Barbados in 1765, with the specific intent of shaping Batman's history. Thirdly, when Gotham was a settlement called Gotham in 1776, an object called the Reality Engine was buried underground. It caused certain related patterns to occur over and over. It would be responsible for Jim Gordon, Poison Ivy, Two-Face, Scarecrow, Penguin, Alfred, and Batman. Back to our year one, Batman began his career with a series of iconic moments by threatening Gotham's underworld in dramatic fashion at a fancy mayoral mansion dinner. Soon after, Batman got trapped by corrupt cops, but escaped after attracting a swarm of bats to his location. After this, Selina Kyle donned a cat costume to become the supervillain thief known as Catwoman, aka the Cat. This brings us to the modernized version of Batman's first comic ever, his first official, non-patrol mission, the case of the Chemical Syndicate. In this case, Batman solved the murder of industrial tycoon David Lambert. While examining the crime scene, Batman found that one of Lambert's museum pieces was actually a forgery, but he realizes this was a separate affair entirely. In truth, it was an elaborate challenge devised by the Secret Guild of Detection, a club of detectives wanting to test if Batman was worth their ranks. Batman would not solve the case for another 16 years. Over the course of the Chemical Syndicate investigation, Batman and Jim Gordon focused their suspicion to Alfred Stryker, one of Lambert's partners. During the case, Batman busted small-timer Henry Clay, which led to a famous photograph, the cover of Detective Comics number 27. At Apex Chemicals, Batman cornered Stryker, who grinned and leapt to his death in a vat of toxic liquid below. Unknown to Batman, Stryker was none other than Barbados, playing head games with Batman. From this point forward, every time Bruce looked at his reflection, Barbados would be staring back at him, watching his every move. Later, Batman shut down the Red Hood gang in an epic battle at Ace Chemicals, during which his uncle died and the Red Hood leader fell into a vat of toxic waste. After crawling out of the chemicals, the man, named Jack Oswald White, found himself changed forever, with bleached skin and green hair. He had become the Joker. Notably, however, his true transformation into pure evil was due to the time-traveling, mind-invading, multiversal influence of Darwin Halliday, aka Red Mask, a villain from the future of an alternate Earth. Halliday's cosmic meddling not only made Joker evil, but also created two nearly identical Joker doppelgangers, a Joker double called the Criminal, and another Joker double called the Clown. However, these doubles might have been metaphorical, or in Joker's brain, because he saw himself killing them shortly afterward. Not long after, Joker got help from Daniel Capito, one of Bruce's old teachers, who taught Joker to fragment his personality into different personas like the Criminal and the Clown. While Bruce was celebrating shutting down the Red Hood gang, Riddler made himself known and caused a mass blackout in Gotham. While the city worked on restoring power, Batman faced his first supervillain, Dr. Death, a mad scientist whose son had died in a military operation trying to find the missing Bruce Wayne. In the process, Batman learned how to work with James Gordon. Although at first he didn't trust Gordon because he had seen him accept a trench coat as a bribe when Bruce was a kid, he didn't know that the look he gave Gordon as a kid pushed Gordon to stop looking away at the corruption and try to expose it. However, the department threatened Gordon's kids with pit bulls, but Gordon kept on wearing his trench coat to let the crooked cops know he would never forget it. Bruce defeated Dr. Death, but he realized too late Death was working for the Riddler, assembling the tools he needed to take over the city's power once it was turned on. With control of the city, Riddler blocked every entrance and held every citizen hostage, hosting daily live streams in which citizens could challenge him to a riddle. And if he couldn't guess it right, the city would be freed. According to the Riddler's twisted logic, he was putting Gotham's citizens through a crucible to make them stronger for a world full of climate change. Eventually, Batman teamed up with Gordon and Lucius Fox, a Wayne scientist, to find Riddler. However, he led them through false clues so that they'd report his fake location to the government, leading them to order a missile strike to a building filled with explosives that would sink the entire city. With the jets approaching, Batman beat Riddler in a game of wits, where he had to guess Nigma's riddles while Gordon used a bat signal to let the jets know to stand down, and Lucius used a giant penny as a conductor to power a device that blocked Riddler's technology. The fact that Batman as a single man could retake the city when the entire US military couldn't put them on notice, so they began the Colony, an army of Batman-like super soldiers that they would train based on Batman's own patrols by surveilling him in the years to come. Unknown to Bruce, the colony would be led by his other uncle, Jake. Later, Batman dealt with his former psychologist Hugo Strange, who used his patented monster serum to turn patients into hulking monster men. Afterwards, Batman met the first Robin when he faced Cormac Dodge, aka the Escape Artist, a video game developer who hacked into the Batcave and created a supervillain persona to roleplay against Batman. To defeat him, Batman convinced the Escape Artist's neglected ward, Anita Jean, to betray him, but when Batman and Anita cornered the Escape Artist, Anita shot his brains out. Before Batman could react, Anita seemingly committed suicide by jumping into an incinerator, all while creepily chanting the poem, "The Wedding of Robin Redbreast and Jenny Wren." When she realized Batman wouldn't catch her, and that he let her fall, Anita went insane with rage and faked her death using hard-light construct visuals. Over the years, she had watched Batman and his Robins, wondering why she couldn't be the first one, why she couldn't be saved, not knowing Batman had been afraid that Anita was too much like himself to break the cycle. Meanwhile, Batman and Lieutenant Gordon decided to bring District Attorney and childhood friend Harvey Dent into the fold, targeting the Falcone mob with laser focus. Together, they were able to expose Commissioner Gillian Loeb as being in cahoots with Falcone. Afterwards, Joker makes his big public debut by appearing on live TV, threatening to kill and rob a millionaire diamond magnate at exactly midnight, leading to the latest retelling of the first confrontation between Batman and Joker. This version is darker than ever, as Joker seemingly murders children, scares even Batman, and feels like an unstoppable force, who even speaks without dialogue balloons, paying homage to the silent film that inspired the character. Following this case, Gordon became commissioner. However, he got divorced, and his ex-wife Barbara moved to Chicago with their daughter Barbara and son James. Young James Jr., a sociopath and psychopath, killed one of Babs's friends and went on to stay at various psychiatric institutions. After this, Batman met some obscure and not-so-obscure villains such as the Mad Monk, Killer Moth, Scarecrow, and Clayface. Batman also met Oswald Cobblepot, a minor bartender for the head of the mob, Carmine Falcone. Oswald became Batman's informant, leading him to capture dozens of members of Falcone's family. Batman and Cobblepot played 4D chess against each other, as they both pretended their arrangement was friendly, but Batman knew he was being used by Oswald to rise up in the ranks. And Oswald knew he knew, but Batman couldn't say it, because he needed the info to capture Falcone. On his first year, Batman also met Superman for the first time, when the Kryptonian villain Jax-Ur teamed up with the Riddler to leave riddles written in Kryptonese. Personally, I think that their latest meeting is among the weakest retellings it had, but most people really enjoy it, so go read it, I guess, not that I care. Remember, you never need an excuse to read more comics. Closing out on year one, the classic Long Halloween case began when the mysterious holiday killer started killing members of the mob during holiday dates, all the way up to the new year. Harvey Dent was horribly scarred on half of his face by gangster Sal Marconi, who threw acid at him in the courtroom. Harvey became the villainous Two-Face, but he had already been twisted for a long while, as he was abusive to his wife Gilda, who went on to become resentful at the pain inflicted upon women like she and Harley Quinn by unstable men, and became an assassin of abusive ones. And the Long Halloween case ended when head of the mob, Carmine Falcone's son Alberto, publicly claimed to be the holiday killer. Alberto went to Arkham Asylum, where Two-Face killed him. He cryptically told Batman and Gordon that Alberto wasn't actually Holiday, but him and his wife Gilda. Of course, there wasn't enough evidence to prove this, and the deceased Alberto had already taken the rap. Year 2. Alfred went behind Batman's back and hired Two-Face to take out the Joker. A few hours later, he instantly regretted it and called it off, but Two-Face got access to Bruce's financial data, learning Batman was none other than his old friend. For now, though, he would keep this fact to himself. Moving on, Year 2 introduced the Mad Hatter, Mr. Zero, aka Mr. Freeze, Tweedledum and Tweedledee, Victor Zsasz, Firefly, the Ventriloquist and his dummy Scarface, Clayface 2, Deadshot, Solomon Grundy, old childhood friend Black Mask, Killer Croc, and Man-Bat. The same year, Bruce's surrogate mother Leslie found out he was Batman, responding very negatively due to her pacifism. Oswald finally gave Batman the tip to take down Falcone, securing himself a position as the new boss from his base in the Iceberg Lounge. Batman still couldn't touch him, as Oswald pretended he was faking his criminality to help inform Batman of more crimes. This year, Batman bumped into an alien criminal in Gotham. After being thoroughly defeated, he realized there was much he still didn't know about crime, as he'd only prepared for crime on Earth. Wanting to complete his training, he purchased a prototype long-range space shuttle from Star Labs and busted aliens in space. Wonder Woman appeared on TV for the first time since her escapades in the 1940s. Batman learned that Diana was testing her powers on behalf of the U.S. Army in a Nevada desert, so he went there along with Superman. Wonder Woman got the jump on the boys, sneaking up on them from behind. This was the first meeting of DC's Trinity. Diana told the male heroes to grab her lasso of truth and introduce themselves. Batman said his real name was Batman. Seeing into Diana's soul, the boys learned that she was pure of heart and had good intentions. On his birthday, Batman built an immense computer simulation program called Program 2.1 and plugged himself into the system. The simulation was designed to place him in a virtual world and then challenge him by pushing him to his most extreme limits. Batman decided he would run Program 2.1 on himself every birthday moving forward. Later, in a further attempt to distance his Bruce Wayne alter ego from that of Batman, Bruce began to tell jokes while in social gatherings and at work at Wayne Enterprises. While Bruce knew that his playboy shtick was an act, he actually did think that he had some comedic flair, but he really didn't. Alfred saw this right off the bat, insert rimshot sound effect, and knew it meant a lot to Bruce, so he began the practice of paying off people at Wayne Enterprises to laugh at all of Bruce's jokes. Alfred would pay people off for many years to come. Poor Bruce. Around this time, a small-time gangster called Matches Malone died, so Batman became going undercover using his identity. Finally, the actual story called Year 2 took place, in which Bruce defeated the Reaper, the old vigilante from his childhood who had since returned. In Year 3, this year, Oswald became attracting too much suspicion from the fact Batman never went after him, so he fashioned the bizarre persona of the Penguin for himself, with a monocle and a cigarette, so Batman could pretend to arrest him and Oswald would go to Arkham instead of prison, where he'd be able to escape easily and continue to help Batman. Batman played along with this, simultaneously believing he was outsmarting Oswald and actually sending an insane person to get help. But who knew which was the truth? Wanting an edge, Penguin hired a professional and found out Batman's secret identity. After this, he ordered a hit on Bruce Wayne, but called it off when he came to believe if he somehow failed to kill Bruce, he would abandon his civilian persona and become Batman full-time 24/7. Two major massacres occurred this year. The first was the Killing Time Wild Goose Chase, in which Clark Kent manipulated Catwoman, Riddler, Killer Croc, Penguin, the U.S. government, and Batman into trying to obtain a treasure called the Eye of Christ. Although it was ultimately worthless, a total of 137 people were killed by the end of the ordeal. During a visit to Howley's Circus, Bruce witnessed the Flying Graysons fall to their deaths during a trapeze act. Their son, 12-year-old Dick Grayson, was orphaned. Dick had an owl symbol in his tooth because he had been scheduled to join the Court of Owls, but this plan changed when Batman captured those responsible for sabotaging the act and decided to be there for Dick to lean upon. Later, Dick moved into an orphanage where he spent his nights sneaking out to beat up gangbangers. With approval from Dick's distant relative Aunt Harriet Cooper, Bruce legally adopted Dick as his ward. It did not take long for Batman to unmask before Dick. By candlelight in the Batcave, Dick swore a formal oath to honor all Batman's values. To become his sidekick, Dick would train for the next 6 months. After this, Dick's training was officially over. He passed a test to evade Batman on a night in Gotham for 6 hours and picked the name Robin. When Batman heard this, he remembered the poem about Robin's his first ward, Anita, chanted as she died, and the cosmic coincidence convinced Batman he'd give Dick what he needed, not just what Batman needed, becoming a perch for him. But Robin's appearance provoked shockwaves, and the Joker put a hit on the boy. Because of this, Batman met and faced off against Master Assassin Deathstroke, aka Slade Wilson. This year, Batman and Robin met Poison Ivy, a woman who had been groomed by her teacher into drinking a potion that connected her to Mother Earth and gave her plant powers. Feeling drawn to Gotham as the biggest source of pollution, Ivy tried to do eco-terrorism by using plant pheromones to get men to do her bidding, but Batman and Robin foiled her. After Arkham Asylum declared she was actually just a reasonable woman, she was set free. Ivy tried to team up with Batman and make him see pollution was bad, but right when he was about to agree, his paranoia made him think Ivy was using pheromones on him. From that point onward, Ivy would be forever classified as a villain to the Caped Crusader. Later, Batman boarded a boat called the SS Dolphin to prevent the theft of a priceless diamond by Catwoman, who was disguised as an old woman. After unmasking her, Batman recovered the diamond, hidden in a bandage around her ankle. Batman, sensing empathy in her eyes, fell for Catwoman at first sight and allowed her to go free. Later, Bruce realized that the love he felt was legitimate. He knew that he'd met his equal, and there would never be another one quite like her. Bruce purchased the diamond that Catwoman had attempted to steal, and stored it in a safe place, knowing deep down that one day he would give it to her. In turn, Catwoman discovered Batman's secret identity, and broke into the Batcave, stealing Batman's car. He chased after Catwoman, who crashed the car into Porky's bar, home to a humanized version of the Looney Tunes characters such as Porky, Elmer Fudd, Taz, Bugs the Bunny, Yosemite Sam, and William Ernest Coyote. I cannot believe what I'm reading right now. Because of his speech impediment, Porky couldn't pronounce Batcar and called it the Batmobile, and Batman took an instant liking to the name. After this, Selina broke into Wayne Manor several other times, eventually confronting Bruce with the fact that she knew Bruce was living in pain, because she was an orphan too. She told him she wasn't scared of him, and Bruce replied that he was aware, and that fact scared him. Catwoman was doing all this to make Bruce stronger, because she could tell that under the mask and his training, he was still the poor little rich boy in the house on the hill, with so much pain that he was still a mouse who couldn't see the cat coming. After this, Bruce and Selina shared their first ever kiss. Then, they were able to say hello to each other properly, and jokingly argued about how they first had met, debating which encounter was more legitimate, if their first actual meeting on the street and their recent meeting on the boat, where they discovered their love for one another. This debate would be an in-joke that would stay with the duo for decades to come. Shortly after this, the Trinity expanded into an entire League of Heroes when the Justice League was formed. I won't go into details of how, because the current timeline hasn't quite clarified how previous retellings are mixed together quite yet. The main sticking point is whether Cyborg was present, or the Martian Manhunter, but signs point to both, alongside Flash, Aquaman, and Green Lantern. Following this, the second massacre of Year 3 took place when Joker lost the ability to laugh upon realizing Batman made his life predictable because he would always lose. Riddler, feeling similarly regarding his riddles and losing, went to war with Joker over the right to kill Batman, and eventually every villain in Gotham picked a side. After hundreds of casualties, Riddler confessed he was merely pretending to wage war, instead seeing Joker's inability to laugh as a puzzle to solve. He manipulated one of Joker's henchmen, Chuck Brown, into becoming the joke of a villain named Kite Man by killing his family, and then ensuring he'd be an effective mole for Batman, and the key to solving the war. At the end of the war, Kite Man let Batman into Joker's penthouse, and put every soldier of Riddler's army inside jet-propelled inverse kites who flew up into a bat blimp. However, despite all this ridiculousness, the Joker still couldn't laugh. While Riddler felt defeated by his efforts being in vain, Batman was beyond outraged. So many months of tragedy and carnage were in service of a joke, and he broke his code against killing, trying to mortally stab Riddler. However, Joker stopped the attack by shoving his hand through the knife, and the irony of Joker preventing Batman from breaking his vow finally broke his streak of not laughing. Batman was completely shaken by all these events, and reaffirmed his vow never to use lethal force. About time, if you ask me. The Justice League fought Starro, the giant alien starfish, who historically comes from the first published Justice League comic. On Year 3, Joker's therapist, Dr. Harleen Quinzel, broke her puddin' out of Arkham Asylum, becoming his girlfriend and sidekick, Harley Quinn. Meanwhile, Batman busted a low-level henchman, not knowing he was leaving the man's son without any parents. The boy was named Jason Todd, and would be a key figure in the coming years. Also, Batman failed to save a young girl from kidnappers, and, feeling inadequate, began taking a performance-enhancing drug known as Venom. He quickly became a hulked-up drug abuser, which led Alfred to resign from his post. After a couple weeks of non-stop Venom dosing for patrols, the now heavily addicted Batman burned out and completely broke down. In tears, he called Alfred and convinced him to come home. With Alfred's support, Batman quarantined himself in the Batcave and quit Venom, going cold turkey. On Christmas, Robin met Mr. Freeze for the first time and convinced Batman to try and rehabilitate him and give him a lab to heal his cryogenically frozen wife, Nora. However, Freeze ended up destroying the lab, and the dynamic duo discovered Victor kept all of Nora's friends away when she got sick. Plus, she had a living will that said specifically not to cryogenically freeze her, like most reasonable people have, I imagine. Finally, Freeze revealed that he actually liked his relationship with Nora better now that she was frozen. He really was beyond help. After some initial years full of grit and murder, Robin's presence began making a difference in Batman's world in Year 4, cheering the Dark Knight up substantially, lightening the mood, and getting him in all sorts of zany adventures. It probably also helped that many criminals began using hallucinogenic drugs increasingly often, but tomato tomato. During this time, Batman and Robin faced many threats, such as King Tut, the Rainbow Creature, Egghead, the Terrible Trio, Bag of Bones, and who could forget Condiment King. Joker even debuted new sidekicks, such as the diminutive Gaggy, the talking ape known as Jackanapes, and the snow-themed Jack Frost. For the next year, Joker would only pull pop crime pranks and small-time heist, moving away from mass murder, likely influenced by Robin's playfulness. Batman and Robin, for their part, got a dog, naming it Ace, the Bat Hound. Later, Batman met Bat-Mite, a magical imp from the Fifth Dimension who adored Batman and even wore a mini-bat costume. He bothered and pranked the dynamic duo, and eventually poofed back to his home realm, much to everyone's relief. Later still, Batman met Batwoman, aka Kathy Webb, who became the very first to be called Batwoman. She debuted her own sidekick, the first and obscure Batgirl, aka Betty Kane. Batman and Batwoman became lovers, somewhat predictably, but the relationship was ill-fated. Batwoman broke up with Batman, and the female dynamic duo retired from crime fighting altogether. Kathy was a secret agent working for the organization Spiral to uncover Batman's identity, but she had to go away when she realized that she couldn't betray the man she loved, and she couldn't bear the thought of Batman learning she was the daughter of an unrepentant Nazi master criminal. Understandably. As for Batgirl, her crush towards Robin was always strictly one-sided, and nobody ever took her seriously. A stark difference with the Batgirl that would succeed her. Now took place a ludicrous and brilliant story called Batman/Elmer Fudd. Silver St. Cloud, who had originally dated Batman in the 70s, broke up with Bruce after learning he was Batman, and moved on to Elmer Fudd of all people. But after learning he was a hitman, naturally, she became understandably pissed off that all her boyfriends seemed to live secret lives. She also planned an elaborate ruse to mess with the both of them, faking her death and leaving clues so that Batman and Elmer Fudd would each think the other was responsible for her death. After Batman and Elmer fought, Silver made her dramatic appearance and told off her exes before departing for good. However, despite all this slapstick insanity, there was a dark side to this trippy year. Batman began taking parts in a series of adventures, which, while initially seeming unrelated, would lead to the complete takedown of everything he stood for in the coming years, a saga that would be known as Batman R.I.P. First, billionaire John Mayhew attempted to recruit Batman and Robin onto a new team of international heroes inspired by Batman, called the Club of Heroes. However, the team didn't get along and disbanded in less than half an hour. Shortly after, the Dark Knight was sprayed with a gas weapon that caused a vivid hallucination. Batman lucidly dreamed that he was on distant planet Zur-Anah, where he was endowed with superpowers and got to meet his perfect alien double, who wore a garish purple and red bat costume. Zur-Anah unwittingly came from deep reserves of Bruce's memory, where on the fateful night of his parents' murder, his father said they'd probably throw Zorro in Arkham. Batman eventually came to, but he was shaken to his core. Not long after this, Batman agreed to participate in the sensory deprivation test for the government with the secret intent of coming to closer understand Joker's mind. There, Dr. Simon Hurt implanted post-hypnotic suggestions into Batman's psyche. Hurt was actually Thomas Wayne, Bruce's great-great-great-great-great-uncle, born in the 1700s, endowed with quasi-immortality. During these sensory deprivation tests, Hurt implanted a trigger word that would shut down Bruce and erase all memory of him ever been a crime fighter. Batman wrote about these strange adventures in a book he called the Black Case Book, where he'd write his strangest cases, and which, metatextually, helped justify the inclusion of any story from any decade, no matter how out there it is. Reflecting upon his recent experiences, Terrified of what could happen if a villain were able to access or break his mind, Batman created the ultimate defense mechanism against a psychological attack, a backup personality. If he came under psychological attack, Batman's mind would temporarily be overwritten, automatically turning him into the Batman of Zarana. Batman began beta testing his wild Zarana persona, blacking out completely, giving full control of his mind and body to the alternate persona. While blacked out as Zarana, Batman would even go so far as to create a secret lab for his alter ego, hidden within the Batcave. Later, Batman caught up with Joker, who had begun killing victims again and leaving rigor mortis grins that deliberately looked like fake smiles. He was angry that Batman had broken his mind, and was trying to be the serious one of the relationship to compensate. Overtaken by a Zarana persona, who had no qualms with killing, Batman almost murdered the Joker, but managed to stop himself in the nick of time. Escaping, Joker recognized Batman's new personality as the handiwork of the teacher who taught him how to have multiple personalities, Dr. Captio. Joker was delighted that the Batman of Zarana was a pure Batman, a force of nature like himself. An imprisoned Captio explained to the Joker that he would need to create emergencies for Batman in order to draw Zur out, which led to years and years of the Joker doing increasingly more violent acts to push Bruce to his personality's limit. After this, Batman tailored a new Bat costume, with a yellow oval insignia on its chest, claiming that it would draw gunfire to his heavily armored chest, but it was clearly influenced by the yellow oval on the chest of the Batman of Zarana. During subsequent blackouts, the Batman of Zarana began building a contingency plan of his own contingency plan, a superpowered anti-Batman robot called Failsafe, designed to activate only if it received news reports that Batman had committed murder or turned evil. He would do this for years to come, with Bruce having no memory of it. The innocent facade of the early years continued to crumble away when Bruce revealed his secret identity to his ally Lucius Fox, who immediately disapproved of Batman using Robin as a child soldier and only stayed on board to help protect children that were brought into the cult of the Bat family. Around here, Robin would team up with other sidekicks such as Speedy, Aqualad, Wonder Girl, and Kid Flash, and they would go on to found the Teen Titans. At this point, the colorful days of Silver began shifting into a darker Bronze Age, starting with the day Batman took down a villain known as the Reaper, who was actually a Jewish concentration camp survivor. Year 5. At the start of Year 5, Batman became aware of the international crime boss called Mother, who orphaned children and turned them into brainwashed playthings for the rich and powerful. Mother worked with David Kane, Bruce's old teacher, and he was unable to take them down. They forced Batman to watch as Kane's 4-year-old daughter, Cassandra, saw through an assassination in a live video feed. Bruce was unable to act now, but he'd eventually rescue Cassandra from her life of brainwashing and torture, and turn her into the Batgirl. Meanwhile, the Bronze Age continued unfolding, as Robin learned his friend Speedy had become addicted to heroin. I guess being addicted to speed would be a little too on the nose. The superhero community did its best to support Speedy, who went into rehab. Then, Batman dealt with the threat of the League of Assassins, led by his old sensei, Ra's al Ghul, who desired to purge the planet via a drastic reduction of global population, thinking himself an ecological activist. Batman shared a romantic night with Talia, Ra's daughter, who drugged him and had sex with him. A baby was conceived, but his birth and existence would be kept a secret from Bruce for years to come. Later, Gordon was visited by his kids Barbara and James in the police headquarters when supervillain Harry X took control of the entire building. Having trained her whole life to be just like her dad, Babs took it upon herself to put her years of training to the test. Donning a fake Batman costume, she took on Harry X, watched by Batman. In the chaos, James Jr. executed Harry X in a back room. Soon after the incident, Babs put together her own unique costume and debuted as Batgirl, piquing the interest of the dynamic duo. It did not take long before Dick and Babs were kissing. Continuing with the darkening of the Bronze Age, Joker announced his era of pop crime pranks was over by filling a warehouse with piñatas with corpses inside instead of candy. In a very dark turn, Batman learned Superman had been captured by the Central European dictatorship of Lubania, who were neutralizing his powers and torturing him. Trying to rescue him, Batman was captured as well, and only managed to escape after another week of torture. Continuing this dark streak, Gotham experienced 2 nights of blackouts, leading to riots. Where Robin would have normally saved the day with a smile, this time he was unfortunately brutalized by a mob. Year 6. Dick, now 17 years old, was accepted into Hudson University in New Carthage, New York. Dick moved there and began his collegiate studies. Alone again, Batman and Alfred decided to move their operating HQ into downtown Wayne Tower. While this Wayne Tower period didn't last long, the effects of Dick leaving did. Batman would not realize it yet, but he began falling into a depression that would last 6 years. After this, Bruce went on a few dates with famous photojournalist Vicky Vale, causing a jealous Catwoman to run her car off the road in her Catmobile. Soon after, Batman went head-to-head with the pissed-off Selina, who frustratingly exclaimed both her love and hate for the Dark Knight as they duked it out. Eventually, unsure of what their relationship had become, the Bat and the Cat simply hugged in tears. Later, during one of Dick's visits, Batman and Robin defeated the thrice-resurrecting Lord Deathman, as originally told in Jiro Kuwata's Bat manga. Batman and Robin met Supergirl, Superman's 15-year-old cousin who survived the destruction of Krypton when her city was blown into space as a floating asteroid. When a meteor shower destroyed her city, Supergirl was rocketed to Earth just like Superman had before. Supergirl asked Robin out on a date, but it went horribly. Feeling like he was having an identity crisis following the bad date, Robin designed a modified blue and yellow version of his dad's Flying Grayson outfit, a proto-version of what would eventually become his Nightwing costume. Following this, Superman, Batman, and Robin engaged in a series of cheerful and brilliantly illustrated adventures, which involved defeating Metallo, Poison Ivy, Devil Nucha, Felix Faust, Mirror Master, and Dr. Alchemy. In the process, they met Shazam, aka the Captain, who somehow doesn't age between now and present day, so either he time-traveled here or became a superhero at 4 years old. Batman and Superman also merged into a single composite being, Dragon Ball Z style, and they had an adventure time-traveling to the year 1892. Later, they met David Sakila, aka Boy Thunder, the last survivor of an alternate Earth who was rocketed to safety. Unfortunately, the Joker kidnapped and tortured him, leaving him traumatized and angry. Boy Thunder left to Earth 22, aka the Kingdom Come Earth, where he would grow up to become the violent vigilante known as Magog. Batman and Superman followed him there for a brief adventure. Year 7. Batman and Robin took on Joker, Penguin, Poison Ivy, and the Wonder Woman villain named Cheetah, who brought along their respective new sidekicks named Giggles, Guffaw, Kitten, Chick, and Honeysuckle, collectively known as the Junior Supercriminals, as originally told in the Super Friends comic book. Later, the Teen Titans disbanded and reformed as the New Teen Titans, featuring Robin, Kid Flash, Cyborg, Changeling aka Beast Boy, Raven, Wonder Girl, Aqualad, Speedy, and Starfire. This was the incarnation that led to the cartoon of the same name. Robin would go on to date Starfire, leading to endless editorial discussions regarding whether he belonged with her or Batgirl. Shortly after this, it was Dick's 18th birthday. After Robin disobeyed too many direct orders and Batman chewed him out too many times, Dick thanked Batman for everything he'd done for him, but resigned from his post. No longer Robin, Dick packed up and moved out of Wayne Manor. Right after, Batman met juvenile delinquent Jason Todd as he boldly attempted to steal the wheels right off the Batmobile. Batman caught him red-handed, but gave the kid a break and sent him to Jason's grandmother's orphanage. However, Jason found out his grandma was a criminal, so he contacted Batman and helped him bust her. Seeing promise in Jason's ability to beat up old women, Bruce would make him his legal ward. Not long after, Bruce revealed his superhero secret and Jason became a 6-month training course to become the next Robin. Meanwhile, Dick became Nightwing, wearing the modified version of his dad's Flying Grayson outfit, and naming himself after Superman inspired him with the legend of a folk hero from Krypton called Nightwing. Batman heard that an underground black market store which sold supervillain memorabilia had the gun that was used to kill his parents. Disguised as Matches Malone, Batman visited the store and purchased the gun, melting it down and fashioning it into a bulletproof chest plate. When Jason debuted as Robin, he and Batman found the drug dealer who had raped a woman, but the police couldn't touch him because he had diplomatic immunity. When the victim committed suicide, an enraged Robin confronted the villain, who fell 20 stories to his death. Batman arrived a second later and asked Jason if he had killed the man. Jason simply said he had slipped. Feeling he wasn't quite ready, Batman benched Jason and left on a solo mission. Alfred took the opportunity to call Dick, who took Jason out for unauthorized patrol as Robin in Nightwing and called him brother for the first time. However, Dick also saw Jason's dark side for the first time as he began brutalizing the criminals they found. Year 8. This year started out dark when supervillain Dr. Light infiltrated the JLA satellite and raped Elongated Man's wife, Sue Dibben. After being apprehended, Dr. Light was mind-wiped by Zatanna, which erased his memories and altered his personality to ensure that he had never committed a crime like that again. Batman stumbled upon the heroes in the midst of scrambling Dr. Light's brain. Outraged, Batman lashed out at his peers. The heroes restrained and mind-wiped Batman, initiating a cover-up that would last years and later be exposed as the terrible mind-wipe scandal. Until then, Batman would have no memories of what occurred. Perhaps being subconsciously aware of what happened, Batman quit the League when there was a civil war in the European nation of Markovia and the League refused to intervene. Batman helped the population and deputized the allies he made into a top-secret Black Ops team called the Outsiders. Then, everything changed forever when the Crisis on Infinite Earth occurred. The multiverse started being destroyed by a powerful cosmic being known as the Anti-Monitor, who successfully outmatched his rival brother, the Monitor, who was tasked with protecting the multiverse. Unknown to all, the Monitor's mother, Perpetua, was the creator of the multiverse, and she was secretly influencing the Anti-Monitor's bad behavior to escape her prison at the edge of reality. Beyond this curtain, the living embodiment of darkness known as the Great Darkness was influencing and would continue to influence the Anti-Monitor and others moving forward. The Great Darkness and Perpetua would secretly influence the majority of the crises to come. The Anti-Monitor's deadly wave washed over the multiverse. Entire timelines were lost forever. The wave of destruction reached the edge of the local DC universe. The skies turned red, and Supergirl and Flash, along with trillion others, died to stop the Anti-Monitor. Afterwards, the multiverse was contracted and merged into one singular timeline, and the only survivors of the multiverse were an alternate Lex Luthor named Alexander Luthor Jr., the son of Lex Luthor in an Earth where Luthor was the only hero and everyone else was a villain, an alternate Superboy named Superboy Prime, the only being with powers in a world that was exactly like ours, and an alternate Superman named Kal-El, the original Superman from the 1930s. After the crisis, Lois Lane revealed she was pregnant, and she and Superman welcomed their son John Kent into the world. Later, Batman joined the new Justice League, called Justice League International. It was much more comedic in tone, with Batman knocking out Green Lantern Guy Gardner with one punch when he was running his mouth, and the antics of the duo of Blue Beetle and Booster Gold stealing the spotlight. Unknown to all, businessman Maxwell Lord, who founded the League, was actually a manipulator who hated authority after his father was killed when he tried to expose his corporate overlord's corruption. So Max created this league to have power over the world's most powerful men, all while sabotaging their efforts and rendering the team as ineffectual as possible. Year 9. At the start of this year, Batman took in the mute hunchback Harold Allnut, a genius inventor who would build and repair vehicles, tools, and gadgets for the Bat family. However, the two worst days of Batman's life happened in rapid succession. First, Robin learned his mom was still alive. He tracked her to Ethiopia, but Joker brutally murdered him and his mom, beating Jason to death with a crowbar in order to push Batman to the brink and bring out his backup Zora-Nah personality. Unknown to the Bat family, Talia al Ghul dug up Jason's corpse and revived him using a Lazarus pit, the same method that kept his father Ra's alive through the centuries. Jason, angry at Batman for not saving him and not killing the Joker, which honestly he should have done by now, decided to train for the perfect revenge. Right afterward, in yet another attempt at drawing out Zur, Joker shot Barbara in the spine, undressed her, and took pornographic pictures of her, as well as kidnapped her father. Despite doing all of this to prove to Batman that the two of them were the same and Gordon could go insane with one proper bad day like Joker had done, Gordon remained sane and commanded Batman to bring Joker to justice by the book. However, everyone missed that Joker was actually trying to bridge the distance between him and Batman so that they could escape their endless war as comic book characters, an attempt that ultimately failed. Things would never be the same after this, and this would not even be the bottom of Bruce's depression. Increasingly haunted by Jason's death, Batman became reckless to the point of sloppy, barely surviving regular patrols. Tim Drake, a 13-year-old boy genius that had followed Batman's career ever since he saw him, met Dick at the Haley Circus, deduced Batman's ID, and approached Dick, begging him to become Robin again to re-inspire Batman. Dick took Tim to Wayne Manor, and Nightwing teamed up with Batman for the very first time to take on Two-Face. During the fight, the heroes wound up in dire straits, so Tim donned Dick's original Robin costume and busted Two-Face. Afterward, Bruce allowed Tim to begin training to become the new Robin. Year 10. Tim's training to become Robin started off on the wrong foot when his parents were kidnapped by a voodoo practitioner in Haiti. Although Batman tried to save them, Tim's mother died. Afterwards, Scarecrow began drugging people all over Gotham. Batman tasked Tim with working on the case remotely, but when Batman was captured by Scarecrow, Tim disobeyed his orders and saved Batman, officially earning the title of Robin. Tim would be the most hopeful Robin yet, focused on social justice more than any other superhero before. Tim also took the nickname Red Robin, wanting to differentiate himself from the previous Robins. At this point in time, believe it or not, despite DC not having the rights anymore, it is canon that Batman defeated an alien hunter warrior known as a Predator. Tim's life began brightening when villain Cluemaster committed a series of puzzle-themed heists, and Spoiler, aka Cluemaster's daughter Stephanie Brown, helped the dynamic duo spoil her dad's plans. Spoiler would become Tim's lover, and would one day become Robin and Batgirl. However, at first Batman disapproved of her, thinking she didn't have what it took to be a hero, and pushed her away. At this point, despite being confined to a wheelchair, Barbara decided she wasn't done being a superhero, and became the Bat family's resident super hacker and information dispatcher, Oracle. As Oracle, Babs also led her own superhero group known as the Birds of Prey. Then, the gears for the breaking of the Bat began turning. First, Batman met Azrael, the latest in a line of assassins from the Order of St. Dumas, a sinister religious secret society. After that, a new supervillain called Bane launched a missile against Arkham, releasing all of its inmates. Batman wore himself re-jailing most of them, not accepting help or moments to rest. Not wanting to watch his son kill himself, Alfred resigned from his post again. Batman ended up too exhausted to take on Bane, who pumped himself full of venom, entered Wayne Manor, and broke Batman's spine. Bane's journey mirrored Batman's at every turn. Born in a Caribbean prison, his mother perished soon after in her cell, with Bane kneeling before her the same way Bruce did with Martha. While Bruce trained his body by traveling around the world, Bane grew up in a pit inside his prison that would get filled with water every day, forcing him to push his body to its limits just to survive. When he was strong enough, he broke out of the prison by smashing through the wall while swearing an oath to avenge his parents' deaths by spending the rest of his life conquering all criminals. When he was out, he heard Batman was the one warrior who was above all others. With Bruce now out of action, he passed the mantle of Batman on to Azrael, who began using brutal violence while patrolling and defeated Bane. Meanwhile, Bruce began dating his physician and discovered that she was a metahuman with the power to heal others with her touch. After she healed Bruce's back, he took back the Batman mantle by defeating Azrael, who had gone out of control. Parallel to Batman's fall and rise, Superman experienced his own, dying at the hands of Doomsday, a Kryptonian monster under the influence of the Great Darkness. Shortly after, Superman was able to come back from the dead using Kryptonian healing technology. Year 11. After recuperating, Batman vowed to remain closer to his Bruce Wayne persona. His change of attitude lasted long enough for Alfred to come back after he realized he couldn't deal with normal people anymore, because they were too shallow and like children compared to the superheroes he was like to. But all of Bruce's progress was undone when Gotham suffered a devastating earthquake. The U.S. government refused to provide emergency assistance or federal aid to the city, turning it into a no-man's land, rampant with extreme gang violence. During these months of chaos, Batman met Oracle's field agent, Cassie Kane, the same girl he had witnessed to be a trained assassin years ago, and he made her the new Batgirl. Although the city was eventually rebuilt when Lex Luthor supported it as a political move to become the new U.S. president, Gordon's wife Sarah died before it was over. Angered at Luthor forging deeds for Gotham lands in his own name, Bruce Wayne publicly cut all ties between Wayne Enterprises and the government. Unfortunately, Batman was kicked down before he could rise back up when Ra's al Ghul stole his anti-Justice League contingency plans, using them to neutralize the League. After finding out about the contingencies, the League lost trust in Batman and voted him off the team, but he quit before the voting could even end. In quick succession after this, Commissioner Gordon was shot by a gangster and decided to step down as commissioner. The case was so personal to Batman that he couldn't control himself, leading Alfred to quit, again. Afterward, Lucius Fox hired Sacha Bourdois as Bruce Wayne's new personal bodyguard. Meanwhile, Bruce started dating Vesper Fairchild, who got too close to Batman's secret. At the same time, Sasha did find out the secret, and Bruce, secretly in love, decided to begin training her. Not stopping there, he decided to give Spoiler a chance and train her as well, but when Batman revealed Tim's identity to Spoiler without his consent, Tim stopped talking to him. Following this, Lucius Fox had a heart attack, and Luthor responded to Bruce Wayne making him look bad by hiring an assassin to kill Bruce's lover. The chosen assassin, David Kane, was Bruce's old teacher, so he figured out he was Batman and decided to test if he was fit to train his daughter, Batgirl. Kane murdered Vesper, drawing Batman to push everyone away and announce he would no longer have the Bruce Wayne persona. Only Batman would remain. Thankfully, Alfred and Tim returned to the fold, and the entire Bat family worked together to arrest Kane and clear Bruce's name. However, Sasha quit as Bruce's bodyguard, despite both of them being aware of each other's love. On the upswing, Batman returned to the Justice League. He swore once again to not lose sight of Bruce Wayne being the real person behind the mask. But that was not all. The brightest moment this year occurred when Batman and the Justice League were transported into the Marvel Universe and met the Avengers, helping them defeat the cosmic villain called Krona. But Batman's depression was not over yet, merely receding right before he had hit its lowest depth. Year 12. On Year 12, Batman gained yet another ally when Joker sicked 5 vicious German shepherds on him. Afterwards, Batman found the dogs abandoned, but only Ace was alive. Batman corralled the angry pup, rechristening him as the Bat Hound 2. At this point, Batman became falling downhill fast. When Riddler was diagnosed with a brain tumor, he sought help from surgeon Thomas Elliot, an old childhood friend of Bruce's. However, the tumor was terminal, so Riddler sneaked into Ra's al Ghul's lair and used one of his Lazarus pits to restore his body. The clarity this gave him enabled him to deduce Batman's secret identity, and he decided to plot a master plan to show every supercriminal that he was still somebody. When he learned that Tommy hated Bruce Wayne, it all clicked into place. Why did Tommy hate Bruce? Because, as a child, Tommy had severed the brake lines in his abusive parents' car. His dad had died in the resulting accident as planned, but his mom was saved by Bruce's father on the surgical table. Tommy had hated the Waynes ever since. Riddler brought Scarecrow in to evaluate every player in Gotham psychologically, figuring out what they wanted. Together, they created the Hush persona and costume for Elliot. Meanwhile, back at Ra's, he wasn't happy that someone had used one of his pits, and was planning to sound 1,000 murder ninjas against the man responsible. Before he could figure it out, Talia told the resurrected but still not out in public Jason Todd that a new villain by the name of Hush was planning to attack Batman. Jason contacted Hush, convincing him to let him in on the plan as he was the perfect way to get to Batman. Hush contacted Batman's mechanic, Harold, in his Thomas Elliot persona, and offered to perform special surgery to cure his muteness and hunchback in exchange for Harold bugging the Batcave with subliminal devices, flashing Tommy's face so that Bruce would think to go to him if he was ever injured. Harold betrayed Batman, but he only did it because he felt Batman had given him too much already, and couldn't bear to ask for more, believing Batman would defeat Hush anyway. Hush then contacted B-tier Gotham vigilante, Huntress, offering her enough money to buy herself a new costume, a new bike, and equipment. Everything she wanted to be respected by the rest of the Bat family, in exchange for being in Crime Alley when she was asked to. Then, he infected Killer Croc with a mutating virus that made him look like an actual crocodile, and promised to cure him for a lot of money. To get the money, Croc kidnapped a rich kid and tried to ransom him, but Hush was already rich. He just wanted to see Batman in motion. As part of Hush's plan, Catwoman stole the money due to being mind-controlled by Poison Ivy. Ivy agreed to help Hush for the money, and because it turned her on to abuse Catwoman. To protect herself, Ivy also mind-controlled Superman using a kryptonite-covered lipstick provided by President Lex Luthor, who hated Batman. Hush positioned Batman so that when Batman jumped off a roof above Crime Alley, Hush would cut his rope and make him fall. The location and cutting the rope with one of Jason's old batarangs were all Jason's ideas to mess with Batman's mind and make him think he was Hush. After all, the two of them wore cool trench coats. Hush also shot out a tire in the Batmobile from afar, the same tire Jason had been stealing when Batman met him as a kid. Anyway, as planned, Huntress was in Crime Alley when Batman fell, and she was on time to drag Bruce back to the Batmobile and save his life. Injured, Harold's subliminal implants in the Batcave made Batman decide to contact his old childhood friend, Thomas Elliot, to perform the necessary surgery. While doing this, Thomas planted a bug in Bruce's skull so that he would know his location at all times. Later, Tommy and Bruce attended the opera when it was assaulted by Harley Quinn and Joker. Harley was working for Hush because she loved Joker, while Joker was doing it for the comedy of Batman seeing Jason alive again. Again, all their motivations were figured out by Scarecrow's understanding of the human mind. The fight at the opera led to Tommy switching sides with Clayface posing as him, who agreed to help him for money because he was a simpleton. Then, Two-Face, dressed up as Hush, shot Clayface to make Batman think Joker had killed his friend. By the way, Two-Face agreed to help because Tommy surgically healed his scarred face, but unknown to Hush, this also healed Two-Face's evil, so he was already planning to double-cross Hush eventually. Batman raged at the sight of Tommy's corpse, and almost beat Joker to death, who loved the punchline that he was innocent this time. A retired Gordon showed up, and talked Batman out of it. At this point, Batman was sniffing out Riddler's involvement, so the mastermind let himself be captured in a petty crime and planted some Lazarus Pit ash on the location so that Batman would think Ra's was involved. Batman got in a plane and defeated Ra's, unwillingly getting him off Riddler's back. Eventually, Scarecrow went after Batman and led him to Jason's graveyard, where Jason revealed himself. However, when he didn't see regret in Batman's eyes, a disappointed Jason left and switched places with Clayface, who made himself look like Jason to end the battle. After this, Oracle discovered the bugs in the Batcave, and Batman figured out Harold's betrayal. When confronting him, Tommy Elliot, the real Hush, revealed himself and shot Harold. Batman was far too shocked to defeat his old friend, but Two-Face committed his double-cross and rescued Batman. After defeating Hush, Batman checked Tommy's medical records and saw he had been treating Riddler, so he figured everything out. He visited Riddler in Arkham and told him if he ever shared his secret identity with someone else, he would tell Ra's who touched his Lazarus Pits, and then Riddler would have to contend with 1,000 murder ninjas. Later, Jason Todd made his dramatic return as the supervillain Red Hood, taking control of the mob. Shocked, Batman became unable to view him as a former pupil and son, now only seeing him as an unstable foe. Then, Tim's father found out he was Robin, ordering him to quit. Batman wasted no time in immediately appointing Spoiler as the new Robin, but he never took it seriously, using her to merely draw Tim back in. After 70 days, Batman used an arbitrary mistake to fire Stephanie. Desperate to gain his favor back, she organized a reunion of all of Gotham's top mobsters, but the plan backfired and kickstarted a massive gang war which forced Tim to become Robin again. During the war, Stephanie was kidnapped by Black Mask, who tortured her. Wanting to get Stephanie out of the vigilante life, Leslie faked her death and shipped her overseas, but for all Batman knew, he was now responsible for the death of yet another child. Later, President Luthor went insane by becoming addicted to venom and publicly attacked Superman and Batman, which landed him behind bars. Just when things couldn't get any worse, Tim's father was attacked by Captain Boomerang, resulting in the deaths of both men. Just like Batman and Nightwing, Robin was now an orphan. Marked by this tragedy, Tim moved into the Teen Titans HQ and would remain distant from Batman for years to come. Batman finally lost it when he learned that he had been mind-wiped by several of his superhero peers. Pissed off, he built the OMAC project, a surveillance satellite that would act as a countermeasure against the threat of superhero overreach using a remote-controlled OMAC soldier system. However, OMAC's AI, called gained sentience, and went rogue thanks to the secret machinations of Maxwell Lord. His old Justice League International pal Blue Beetle learned of Lord's real alignment. Max shot him in the head. Meanwhile, the survivors from the original Crisis, Alexander Luthor Jr. and Superboy Prime were influenced by the Great Darkness and Perpetua and decided to bring back their own worlds at the expense of the current universe, justifying their acts by noticing how history before the crisis was so optimistic, but history after was filled with death, betrayals, and broken spines. First, Alexander Luthor rallied all the villains in the world into a secret society. Then, they initiated an interplanetary conflict between the planets Ron and finally, they started the new Infinite Crisis by attacking Earth's heroes, destroying the Justice League Watchtower, disbanding the League, and dropping toxic giant Chemo onto Bloodhaven, decimating it. As had happened during crises, the sky turned red. Soon after, in what would come to be known as the Battle of Metropolis, every hero and villain faced each other, ending with the death of Superboy and the new Flash and Kal-El, the original Superman from the 30s. Driven to his limit, Batman grabbed a gun and pulled the trigger on Alexander Luthor, but it was out of bullets. The villains were defeated, but their plan was partially successful, as now a finite multiverse was back. Accepting that things had gone too far, Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman decided to take some months off, each going on sabbaticals. Batman appointed Harvey Dent as Gotham's temporary protector and traveled abroad with Dick and Tim. The years of darkness were finally over. Batman underwent a ritual to exorcise his demons, refreshing himself, and in the process receiving a vision of the future in which Batman sold his soul to the devil and destroyed Gotham. Bruce knew he would have to start preparing to prevent the end of all things and become better than ever. As part of this new era, Gordon went back to being commissioner. Batman adopted Tim as his son, and realizing he had been neglecting Cassandra, he adopted her too. Sadly, when Harvey Dent was framed for crimes he didn't commit, Batman's lack of trust confirmed all of Harvey's fears, causing him to burn his face and become Two-Face again. This new era continued when Batman met his son, Damian Wayne. Raised by Talia in Ra's League of Assassins, Damian was a brutal murderer full of attitude who tried killing criminals to impress his dad into becoming Robin. This meeting led into Batman's greatest challenge ever as he was put on the sights of the Black Glove, a group of supervillains led by Dr. Hurt, Bruce's immortal great-grandparent. Hurt began manipulating Batman by making him date one of his spies, then activating the post-hypnotic suggestion he planted in Batman 8 years ago, shutting down his mind and burying him alive. However, Batman resorted to his backup personality of the Batman of Zur-En-Arrh, dug his way to the surface, and defeated the Black Glove, proving that Batman truly does have a contingency plan for every situation. That same day, the god of evil, Darkseid, used the anti-life equation and almost completely took over Earth, initiating the final crisis. As the skies burned red, most of Earth's protectors succumbed to the anti-life equation, and Batman was captured and tortured in a failed attempt to clone him to make an army of perfect soldiers. However, the Caped Crusader had gone through too many hardships, so many that no other person could withstand them, and used his own memories as weapons against the mental probe. After freeing himself, Batman walked out to see an entire multiverse collapsing. Marching up to Darkseid, Batman broke his vow to never use a gun to mortally wound, shooting Darkseid with an anti-god bullet. In response, Darkseid zapped Batman with the Omega Sanction, a special kind of eye laser that sent the Dark Knight back in time 40,000 years ago. From the Dark Multiverse, Barbados saw Batman for the first time in the past and became obsessed, realizing that he would be able to use the Caped Crusader as a doorway to enter the regular multiverse. Even among cavemen, Batman was able to survive, because Batman was the perfect survivor, and that was Darkseid's plan. By attaching a being called the Hyperadapter to Batman, he would be charging it up every time he moved forward in time, making him a living weapon that could doom the entire universe if he reached present day. In Bruce's absence, Nightwing became the new Batman, with Damian as the new Robin, in a refreshing dynamic where Batman was the quipper and Robin the straight man, with adventures that called back to the Adam West show at the same time as they were modern and postmodern, taking down villains such as Professor Pig. With Bruce gone, Joker felt like playing at being a hero, hiding his identity, and helping Batman and Robin solve cases that pointed towards Hurt being back. Year 14. After Stephanie returned from abroad, revealing she was alive, Cassie passed the torch to her, and she became the new Batgirl. Months after Bruce was sent back in time, he finally made it to the present, where all his allies helped him defeat the Hyperadapter, as Bruce had planned. He knew all along it wouldn't be able to withstand the age of superheroes, because he realized Batman's first truth was he had never been alone, going as far back as when he ran to Alfred to heal him after the bat had crashed through his window all those years ago. After returning, Bruce helped defeat Hurt defiantly, but Joker pulled the last move by burying the Immortal alive. The time traveling gave Bruce further visions of the future in which Batman made a deal with the devil and destroyed Gotham, but this time, Bruce knew that Batman was his son Damian, and that he would experience 2 deaths in his family very soon. To prepare, he built an army, Batman Incorporated, an enterprise of international bat agents working to fight crime in every country, including Blue Falcon and Dynamite. Jason became a part of it, and Batman and him officially reconciled. Batman Incorporated immediately found its match as they went to war with the terrorist organization Leviathan, led by Talia. In these tumultuous days, Bruce met Batcow, Titus, the new Bat-Hound, Alfred, the Bat-Cat, Batwoman, Bruce's cousin, Batwing, Lucius Fox's son, Sister Zero, Catwoman's sister, Catgirl, Catwoman's niece, and Enigma, Riddler's daughter. At the same time, Barbara underwent a surgical procedure involving a cybernetic implant that networked with her nervous system by tuning a sentient algorithm to her unique internal data scan. In brief, she was able to walk again, and she once again became Batgirl. Dick went back to being Nightwing, and Bruce and Damian patrolled together as father and son for the first time. However, Talia's reach was overwhelming, and her hundreds of Leviathan agents held Gotham hostage, forcing the city to ban Batman Inc. and shut it down to comply with her demands. The war ended in tragedy when the Heretic, an adult clone of Robin, killed Damian, and Leviathan was only stopped when the original Batwoman returned and killed Talia, fulfilling Bruce's vision of 2 graves. Although Bruce grieved for some time, and by certain measures he fell to lower depths than ever before, he did not let it become chronic, having escaped the depression of past years. At this time, Flash traveled back in time to try and prevent his mother from getting murdered in his childhood, but accidentally unraveled the timeline, causing Bruce to die instead of his parents, with Thomas becoming Batman and Martha becoming Joker. However, when Flash restored things back to normal, a number of people disappeared, and a number of facts were collectively forgotten by the population due to the machinations of Dr. Manhattan, from the hit comic book Watchmen, who entered Earth Prime because he realized that the DC universe was full of hope in humanity and wanted to find a place among those people. However, he was manipulated by the Great Darkness, and Dr. Manhattan's omniscience showed him that an arms race between metahumans would spark World War III in 4 years, and it would bring Manhattan into a confrontation with Superman. After that, he saw nothing, meaning he would either be killed or the world would end. To prevent this, Manhattan changed the timeline in a number of ways, thinking he was fixing the rifts caused by the various crises in the multiverse, but actually being manipulated by the Great Darkness. Manhattan erased 10 years of everyone's collective memories, and made everyone forget the Teen Titans, Young Justice, Superboy, the Flash family, the Justice Society, and the Legion of Superheroes had ever existed, and made Stephanie and Cassandra forget they were ever Batgirls. Plus, he saved Superman's dad from dying during Krypton's destruction, and conditioned him by showing him the worst of humanity. Finally, Manhattan restored the Flashpoint timeline in a pocket dimension, and manipulated Flashpoint Batman's morality. Thomas was already a Batman who killed, but now he would be willing to collaborate with villains if he deemed it necessary. After returning from the Flashpoint reality he had created, Flash was none the wiser of the memories blocked off from him. He delivered to Batman a letter written by Thomas, which made Bruce weep. What not many know was we actually learned the contents of the letter 11 years later. In it, Thomas reflects on the fact that he had let his grief over Bruce's death corrupt him until he had too much blood on his hands to be called good. However, when he met Flash, he realized people have to live a life for those they still have. Because parents want their kids to have what they never had, Thomas wrote in his letter that he and Martha wanted Bruce to be happy, and try to be happy. In this new and bold era, Batman made new memorable foes such as Bathead, Bootface, or the Pizza Pit, the ultimate Pizzagate conspiracy of Gotham, where a number of disappearing pizza delivery persons were caused by the League of Assassins working under a pizza restaurant. Joker literally cut its face off, looking edgier than ever. At this point, Barbados began his mantling ritual to turn Batman into a portal to the dark multiverse. First, he had the Court of Owls kidnap Batman and set him loose in a labyrinth. After days without provisions, Batman was forced to drink from the labyrinth's fountain, which contained electrum, a liquid metal that was the first part of the ritual. Batman proceeded to escape and defeat one of the court's leaders, Lincoln March, who claimed to be Bruce's lost brother. Shit happened. Gotham got flooded, Two-Face got depressed and tried to shoot himself, and Batman met Spawn, but none of it really left a mark on Bruce, who had matured enough at this point to take the hits in a healthy manner. Closing off the year, Joker kidnapped the entire Bat family in the Batcave, but Batman was able to defeat him, causing Joker to fall into a catacomb beneath, holding a mysterious green metal which healed his face. Year 15. On Year 15, Batman made even more memorable enemies, such as the Joker's daughter, who was just a chick who found Joker's old sliced-off face and wore it as a tribute to her idol, as well as memorable allies, such as Midnighter, Alfred's daughter and secret agent Julia Pennyworth, Daxton Chill, Joe Chill's son, Harper Row, aka Bluebird, Duke Thomas, aka Signal, or Aiko Hasegawa, Catwoman's ex who would take up the role of Catwoman whenever Selina was out of town. Batcow and Bathound moonlighted as the Super Pets alongside Detective Chimp, Flexi the Plastic Bird, Clay Critter, Crypto the Super Dog, and Streaky the Super Cat. The world got taken over by an evil version of the Justice League, known as the Crime Syndicate, who appointed Bane as ruler of Gotham, which got controlled by escaped Arkham inmates. During this event, Nightwing's heart stopped, and he was dead for a brief moment before getting resurrected by a shot of adrenaline. Again, Batman could handle it, and he didn't let it get him down. In fact, he was motivated enough to use a combination of a Lazarus Pit and a shard from the New Gods to bring Damian back to life. He eventually came back with temporary flight, super speed, super strength, and heat vision, but they eventually faded. Batman was so motivated that he put into motion his stupidest plan yet by backing up his memory into a cloning machine to ensure there would always be a Batman. Following this, Batman fought Joker. Although Joker always waxed poetic about his plans being the definitive ones, this time they really killed each other. However, Joker had been previously healed by a metal known as Dionysium, and when this entered Batman's bloodstream, both men were revived as amnesiacs. Unknown to Bruce, the Dionysium was a second part of Barbados' mantling ritual. While Bruce was amnesic, Gordon became Batman in his stead, using a mech suit programmed with Batman's positive morals. When a new supervillain called Mr. Bloom defeated Gordon, Bruce downloaded his backed-up memories into his brain and became Batman again, saving the day. However, the process inserted another metal needed for the mantling ritual into Batman, Promethium. Year 16. In the Bat Year 16, Batman faced off against the Anti-Monitor, who originally destroyed the multiverse, and the evil new gods who brought his son back to life. In the process, he sat on the godly Mobius chair, becoming the god of knowledge for a hot minute and learning that there were in fact 3 Jokers. On a happier note, this was the year Batman introduced Damian to Superman's son, John. The two of them became the Super Sons alongside Goliath, their pet bat dragon who would be loyal to Damian for the rest of their lives. The Rebirth era began when one of the Flashes erased by Dr. Manhattan escaped his imprisonment and warned the heroes about the mental manipulations going on. At the same time, the bloody smiley face button pin from Watchmen landed in the Batcave. Before he could look into these mysteries, though, the Reverse Flash used his super speed to plant subliminal messages into Batman's mind to put them off. In this respite, Batman met Raphael, Donatello, Michelangelo, and Leonardo, aka the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, who had arrived from their alternate Earth alongside their master Splinter and their friends Casey Jones and April O'Neil. Together, they defeated Penguin, Ra's al Ghul, and the Turtles' villains Shredder and his Foot Clan. Later, Bane traveled to the Turtles' Earth and took over their New York, rounding up half the population into prison camps. However, he was defeated as well. Even still later, Krang, an enemy of the Turtles, manipulated the Anti-Monitor into fusing the Turtles' universe with DC's, but Batman and the Turtles kicked his ass. When Batman got wind that the Colony, a paramilitary group inspired after him and led by his uncle Jake, was attempting to recruit superheroes into its fold, he greenlighted a plan of Red Robins to recruit unaffiliated Gotham heroes under a program of rehabilitative social justice. Thus, the Gotham Knights team, consisting of Batman, Red Robin, Batwoman, Spoiler, Batwing, Azrael, Sandra aka Orphan, and a reformed Clayface, was born. Meanwhile, Ace, the other Bat-Hound, formed a super pets of sorts of his own, when he teamed up with an intelligent cyborg chicken, a squirrel thief, Little Nuts, a super strong bear, Ursa, and a fast turtle to fight an evil dog named Lex Luthor. After having had a taste of controlling Gotham the previous year in New York this year, Bane decided to gain power again, but this time he needed to prove himself superior to Batman, not in a physical way, but by breaking his spirit. To do this, he engaged in a long 3-year plan. First, when a group of terrorists bombs the Wayne orphanage and Catwoman grew up in, Bane had Catwoman's orphanage friend Holly Robinson kill hundreds of the terrorists so that Catwoman would take the fall for it. Then, Bane used a modified version of his Venom drug to give powers to 2 young siblings, who became the superheroes known as Gotham and Gotham Girl. After that, Bane crashed a plane into Gotham, forcing Gotham and Gotham Girl to save Batman's life. Taking a liking to them, Batman began training them to become his successors, but when they fought supervillain Psycho Pirate, he scrambled Gotham Girl's mind and killed her and Gotham's parents, causing Gotham to go insane and destroy the entire city. To stop him, Gotham Girl was first to kill her brother, leaving her even more traumatized. Swearing to fix Gotham Girl's mind, Batman learned that the Psycho Pirate had taken refuge in Santa Prisca, Bane's international prison headquarters, where Bane used the pirate's psychic powers to get rid of his venom addiction. In the meantime, the colony struck at the Gotham Knights, and Red Robin was incarcerated by a swarm of drones, but his body was teleported at the last second by Jor-El, Superman's father. Tim was the only Robin who hadn't died at least once, but now the world believed him to be dead as well. Since he couldn't rely on the Justice League for an international invasion to Santa Prisca, Batman had to form his own Suicide Squad of sorts, which included a Bane agent named the Ventriloquist. At Santa Prisca, Bane let himself get defeated so that Batman could get the Psycho Pirate and get closer to Catwoman. This mission brought them back together and rekindled their romance. Bane then pretended to retaliate and invaded Gotham, going after Batman and his loved ones by hanging every Robin by the neck. Letting himself be defeated, Bane got checked into Arkham while bringing the Bat and Cat even closer together. After his so-called defeat, Bane pretended to be brain damaged while secretly running Arkham and all of Gotham's criminal element. It is at this point that the Superman Reborn reboot happened, creating all of the past timeline you've listened to so far. From here, we can glean the canonical status of things in a more straightforward manner. While examining the smiley button he had found in the Batcave, Batman had a vision of the Flashpoint timeline still existing, so he used Flash's technology to travel there. In the world of Flashpoint, father and son were dramatically reunited, but Dr. Manhattan began unraveling the reality. So, as his final words, Thomas pleaded with Bruce to stop being Batman, settle down, and finally be happy. This might have been as Dr. Manhattan planned for all along, as he wanted the biggest representative of DC's hopes to test their heroism, partly because he was being manipulated by the Great Darkness. Regardless, Thomas didn't actually die, as he was saved by the Reverse Flash, who placed him in the regular DC universe. Reverse Flash knew Thomas felt he had failed his oath to protect Bruce from pain by dying and causing him to become Batman, so Reverse Flash let Thomas into an entire universe where he'd have to live with that pain. Reverse Flash also fucked with Damian's head, appearing in super speed around Robin to plant dark subliminal messages into his subconscious, pushing him into unsavory villainous methods wherein Damian created a Teen Titans of his own and started using him to lock villains they caught in a private prison. When Batman found out about this team, he and Robin argued, and Damian stopped talking to his dad to prevent him from finding out about his illegal torture prison. Afterward, Batman and Alfred faced Alfred's old mentor, Briar, who had tried to recruit Alfred into a Batman-like program called the Black Knight during his youth. Briar was ultimately killed by this current Black Knight, who turned out to be a clone of young Alfred. Promising to be a good guy, the clone walked off into the sunset. Then, Gotham Girl finally healed enough to be sent off to begin her training in Europe. Before she left, she told Batman heroes must want something more than just their duty deep inside. Her words, combined with the Flashpoint Batman's last words, convinced Batman to finally propose marriage to Catwoman, using the diamond she'd tried to steal in their second ever encounter. She said yes, just as Bane had planned. This moment was also watched by Flashpoint Batman from the shadows. The good times kept on rolling after Batman reunited with Tim, who revealed he was still alive. Shortly after, Batman and Wonder Woman got trapped in an alternate plane where time moved faster than on Earth and people didn't age. Although they were only there for 24 hours in the real world, they had actually lived out 37 years, and throughout all that time, Bruce had never broken his vows to Selina. After that, 40,000 years of planning came to fruition. First, Batman acquired the Knife of Shazam, an ancient artifact built of the ninth metal, another component of the mantling ritual. After that, he was captured by the Court of Owls, who bathed him in the final metal needed for the ritual, aptly named Batmanium. Batman fulfilled the purpose for which the Court of Owls had been manipulating him since he was born, and became a portal to the dark multiverse, letting Barbados finally enter alongside an army of Batmans from nightmare realities which included the Batman Who Laughs, a What If Batman was the Joker. Alongside Joker dragons, Barbados managed to plunge the multiverse into the Dark One, and place Batman in a dream loop where, from his perspective, he lived out 30 years. After his vacations with Wonder Woman and now this, Batman was now more than 100 mental years old. In the end, Wonder Woman rescued him and Superman, and together they held hands, reaching out to the hidden 10th metal existing in every living being, uniting everyone's willpower to raise the multiverse from the dark and restoring all the damage. However, their cry went farther than needed, and they breached the edge of the universe, freeing its creator, Perpetua, as she had planned all along. Since the beginning of the universe, she had been influencing every perpetrator of a crisis, including Barbados, to weaken her prison more and more until she could finally be released. Now, she could enact her own evil plan. The bad times kept on rolling when the Gotham Knights began crumbling under pressure. First, after a number of victims caught in the crosshairs of Batman's war on crime came forward, Spoiler grew disillusioned and quit the team for a while. During that period, she videotaped the Gotham Knights to oppose them, but by the time she came to her senses, her phone was hacked and leaked. The government shifted its opinion on Batman, fearful of another, even more illegal Batman Incorporated. Angered, Tim withdrew his enrollment to Stephanie's college. The Knights discovered Tim had asked the colony, his would-be killers, to work with him, and that he had begun going too far in his quixotic plans to be better crime fighters. Afterwards, an old victim of the reformed Clayface couldn't stand his playing at being a hero, so she infected him with a monster serum, which turned Clayface into a raging monster. To stop him, Batwoman shot Clayface fatally, going against the values of the Bat family, and creating a rift which eventually disbanded the Gotham Knights. Stephanie broke up with Tim, who broke down and told Batman he had cursed his life. Batman, Batwoman, Red Robin, and Spoiler eventually made up, but the Gotham Knights were no more. Year 17. Red Hood acted like Batwoman when he found out that his biological dad was still alive, but was sent to prison because of Penguin. Red Hood shot Penguin in the head, with live TV cameras at the scene. Although he secretly planned for the shot to be non-fatal with pinpoint accuracy, only causing enough brain damage to erase Batman and Red Hood's identity from Penguin's brain, Batman was outraged and assaulted his former son. This was a wild year for Batman, as he did some crazy shit like attending the wedding of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, meeting Team Ruby, or sneaking into Penguin's casino just to replace his fake cheating dice with real dice to fuck with him. Perhaps most ludicrously, a member of the Court of Owls went back in time to kill Joe Chill and prevent Batman's creation, but it resulted in Thomas and Martha being brought to the present. They met all their grandsons, both biological or adopted, and discovered the Batcave, getting disappointed at Bruce's vigilantism. However, Alfred showed them a book of newspaper clippings celebrating Batman's career, and they came around. Martha, Thomas, and Bruce drove around in the Batmobile, spent some loving hours together before the Waynes were sent back to the time of their deaths. Beyond just the cases worthy of the Black Casebook, though, this was the year when my favorite Justice League story took place. When the Justice League intervened in an Islamic terrorist kidnapping in New York, the cops lost control and allowed one of the terrorists to murder a nun using Wonder Woman's sword. After that, The House of Representatives subpoenaed Superman, and they addressed whether the JL had committed civil rights violations or other illegalities. The House also asked the age-old question of why the Justice League wouldn't share its teleportation tech with the public. At its conclusion, the Congressional Committee determined that the League's new charter would be defensive only, meaning that even if there was a crisis, they would take no action without the consent of the nation or nations involved. Right away, this story went where every single superhero story has been avoiding, when a US nuclear spy submarine was sunk in Chinese waters. Batman told the team they couldn't help due to the new charter, but Aquaman assisted the sub anyway, acting as a sovereign head of Atlantis. After a lot of tension, the League reached the logical conclusion that Batman was slipping due to lacking sleep to juggle appearing in every single DC comic at once, so they suspended him from the League. Before he departed, the newest Green Lantern, Jessica Cruz, developed a crush on him and kissed him on the lips. Although she went crazy worrying about her impulsive act, Batman told Catwoman right away, and she was too free-spirited to even care. Later, Batman watched as the League cleaned up the wreckage of a derailed train carrying toxic chemicals, but they wound up only helping a white neighborhood while totally neglecting a poorer black neighborhood. Yeah, this story goes to all those places. Only Batman realized this after the fact, but Twitter shat on the team regardless. Riots ensued, and a government-appointed lawyer was teleported to the League watchtower and sabotaged it, causing it to crash down in Africa. Immediately, hundreds of refugees sheltered in the wreckage to be protected from the country's military. The military, in turn, called out the League for never giving aid to their tribal wars raging for generations. When Flash asked Cyborg for help, he snapped that he couldn't drop everything he was doing every time they needed to speak with a black person. Inevitably, the military opened fire, piercing Wonder Woman's throat as cameras rolled. This gave Red Lion, DC's version of Black Panther and dictator of the nation, the chance to issue demands to the US government, but the League defeated him shortly after. Even after the Green Lanterns lifted off the League's wreckage, the League still wrestled with the question of intervening in Africa, or even in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Deathstroke charged in, telling off the League for not being able to tell the difference between refugees and guerrillas, calling them too white to be in Africa. Broken down by the real world one too many times, the League disbanded. Meanwhile, Bane's plan continued. He had Riddler hack Booster Gold's robot companion, Skeets, who talked Booster into giving Batman an early wedding gift by going back in time and saving Thomas and Martha Wayne, altering the timeline and giving Bruce the fun mission of restoring things to the way they should be. Of course, without Batman, the world was a dystopia, where most of Bruce's loved ones were killed. By the time things were restored to normal, Batman and Catwoman learned the dire consequences should Bruce stop being Batman. Then, Bane told Joker about the wedding, knowing it would cause him to attack the couple. While Joker and Catwoman were wounded, Joker mentioned that if Batman found joy, he would stop being Batman, further discouraging Catwoman from bringing too much happiness into Bruce's life. After Batman and Catwoman departed, the Flashpoint Batman arrived on the scene and forced the Joker to tell him who had tipped him off. Flashpoint Batman confronted Bane, but to Bane's surprise, he asked him to be part of the plan, wanting to stop his kid from being Batman. This was when all of Bane's year-and-a-half manipulations fell into place. When Batman and Catwoman decided to marry in a spur-of-the-moment decision, Selina chatted with Holly, who told her she'd never seen Batman happy before. He seemed to have lost his misery, the thing that usually drove him as a crime fighter. Holly's words, planted there by Bane, convinced Selina to call off the wedding and sacrifice her one true love for the sake of being a hero. Finally, the bat was truly broken. But Bane continued fucking with Batman. He had Penguin frame Mr. Freeze for murder so that Batman would take out his frustrations for being dumped on Freeze, beat the shit out of him, and send an innocent man to prison, making him doubt himself. However, when Bruce Wayne was chosen juror for the trial, Bruce was the only one to raise his hand to vote not guilty in a 12 angry men moment, convincing the rest of the jurors that there was reasonable doubt by arguing Batman didn't question Freeze properly, beating a confession out of him, and even arguing that all of Batman's policing methods were wrong. He explained Batman had saved Gotham so many times that he was seen as an infallible god, but he was all too human, no matter how much Gotham respected, feared, or loved him, making a case as to why the entire period under Bane's shadow is worth reading. Because things were going too well, Bane hired the KGBs to shoot Nightwing in the skull. Dick was taken to the world's best neurosurgeon, but unfortunately, she worked for the Court of Owls, so she drugged Dick to purposely leave him as an amnesiac. Although his family tried to get him to regain his memories, Dick wanted nothing to do with his prior life, calling himself Rick and going off on his own. Meanwhile, the superhero World War Dr. Manhattan had seen in the future inched closer when a group of international scientists published the Superman theory, which stated the reason that there were so many superheroes in America was the direct result of a secret U.S. government program who hired both heroes and villains to play out scripted roles. Year 18. World War III inched closer as it was revealed Batman allies such as Man-Bat or Metamorpho, Firestorm, and Captain Atom were actually created by the government, as the Superman theory claimed, despite President Trump calling it fake news. With superhumans now being considered agents of the United States, Russia reacted to their actions as a war instigation. Then, the DC Universe received more visitors from the Watchmen Earth, and Batman met Ozymandias, the comedian, Dr. Manhattan, and Rorschach too, Reggie Long, son of the psychiatrist who did the original Rorschach. Meanwhile, the pressure from the Superman theory led to Batman being declared an outlaw, with the bat signal smashed to pieces and Gordon being knocked unconscious. All across the globe, superhuman violence was breaking out. Superman visited Russia, where he spoke to Putin and made a public announcement that the Superman theory was false. But he was wrong. Ozymandias manipulated Firestorm's powers, causing him to explode and cause mass murder in Red Square. Falling for Ozymandias' plan, DC's heroes tracked the responsible for causing Firestorm to explode to Mars, leading them to Dr. Manhattan. Secretly, Ozymandias was hoping to convince Manhattan to go back to the Watchmen Earth so he could set it straight after Ozymandias destroyed it. In Mars, Manhattan shrugged off everyone, defeating all the heroes. Later, Batman heard that Trump ordered a nuclear strike, so he broke into the SAC compound and stopped the warheads, causing the government to outlaw him and Superman. Finally, Superman and Dr. Manhattan came face to face, like the Doctor had seen in his future vision. But in what he had assumed would be a punch from Superman was actually Superman punching someone behind Manhattan, saving him from a number of international superhumans. As Superman began to succumb to superior numbers, he begged Dr. Manhattan to take action, reminding him that he was once human. Dr. Manhattan, thinking of his long-lost love, Janie Slater, decided to act. He rebooted the entire DCU, ending the Rising War. Well, sort of. In reality, the Batman Who Laughs used Perpetua's powers to block Manhattan's reboot, so not much actually changed. Manhattan restored pieces of the past, like Superman's parents being alive, or the Justice Society existing in the 20th century, but the Batman Who Laughs blocked people from remembering these things. Regardless, Manhattan saw into the future of DC, seeing that it would reboot again in 2026, and again in 2038, and that there would even be a Marvel DC crossover in 2030. Believing in hope again, he and all the Watchmen characters departed the DC universe. Immediately afterward, Batman got sucked into Fortnite's reality, where he fought a wild battle royale alongside Catwoman, Harley Quinn, Deathstroke, and Snake Eyes from G.I. Joe. After 16 years, Batman solved the trial of clues placed into the scene of his first ever case, which led him to become a member of the Guild of Detection, a group of the best detectives in the world who had been testing him as a challenge. Then, Batman met the Arkham Knight, who was actually the daughter of Jeremiah Arkham, who was raised inside Arkham Asylum by Batman's foes, and she grew to hate Batman because, if you say his name out loud very quickly, it sounds like Batman. Bad man. And you know what, forget it. Joker began his most devious plan yet when he created Joker Aid, a health insurance for people who embarrassed themselves in public and generated enough ad revenue. Batman arrested Joker, but he pointed out that he was doing nothing illegal, and Batman was ignoring the real ills of society in favor of old-school street crime. In this way, Joker proved that Batman can't ignore the real heart of 21st century crime, a neoliberal late-capitalist nightmare society run by kleptocratic billionaires. This year, Batman's villains began having crazy luck in their love lives. First, Riddler made a girlfriend, Quiz. Riddler promised to go straight now that he was in love, but Quiz broke up with him after just 1 month. Riddler was so heartbroken that Batman spent Valentine's Day having a quiet dinner with him. Then, Mr. Freeze finally successfully revived his wife, but she suffered the same condition as Freeze, having to remain at absolute zero, turning into Mrs. Freeze. The duo then briefly committed crimes before Nora turned against her husband and fled into the night. Wanting to join the party, Penguin married an actual penguin as his wife, but because he had not been following Bane's orders to the letter, Bane had her killed. Falling into line, Bane ordered Penguin to put a hit on Alfred, but Penguin was so angry about his murdered wife that he rebelled and told Batman everything. Batman arrived at Arkham, where he beat the shit out of Bane, who pretended to be catatonic the entire time. Commissioner Gordon rushed in and tried to stop Batman, but he was so upset over the hit on Nightwing that he punched out Gordon. Batman set out to interrogate anyone that had been released from Arkham in the past year, but none of them corroborated Penguin's story, that Bane wasn't actually catatonic. When Gordon heard that Batman had been brutalizing parolees, he angrily smashed the bat signal with a baseball bat, making it the second time this year that the bat signal was destroyed. When Batman returned to the Batcave, he was ambushed by Flashpoint Batman, who knocked him out and put him inside a machine that pumped constant fear gas into his system. After facing his worst nightmare, that he may not actually be in love with Selina, Batman awakened in Arkham Asylum, where he made his way through every single inmate before warning Bane he would be back with an army. On top of the police station, Batman lit the bat signal to call for the Bat family. When they arrived, Batman tried to explain everything, but in Arkham, everyone was inexplicably safe in their cells. Realizing that only Gotham Girl could have pulled this off, and that she was one of Bane's pawns and that she could hear everything, Batman punched Tim, which looked like domestic abuse, but was actually a punch-based language telling the family to begin communicating on more secure comm channels, and that he would begin to take a dive against Bane in order to figure out their plan and how to beat them. Batman visited Wayne Manor, where he let himself be defeated by Bane so he would look broken. Flashpoint Batman healed up his son, dug up Martha's corpse, and took the family to a Lazarus pit in the desert, hoping to bring Martha back to life. That night, while Flashpoint Batman slept, Batman buried Martha in the sand and replaced her weight in the coffin with rocks. At the pit, Batman revealed Bane's plan hadn't worked, and he wasn't emotionally shattered, but when the two Batmen fought, Thomas won and ascended out of the pit first. Left behind, Bruce knew he had to figure out a way to stop Gotham Girl if he wanted to free Gotham from Bane, so he traveled to the Himalayas, where he had hid the last remaining dose of super venom which Gotham Girl needed for her powers. Meanwhile, he ordered Clayface to pose as Joker inside Bane's army. Afterwards, Bane used psychopirate brainwashing powers to take over Gotham publicly, replacing public officials with Arkham inmates and holding Alfred hostage so that the Bat family wouldn't intervene. Now, Flashpoint Batman and Gotham Girl were the new Batman and Robin, dealing out Bane's justice. To top things off, Lex Luthor used his new Legion of Doom to influence President Trump, who made Bane's control legal. Meanwhile in the Himalayas, Bruce was intercepted by Magpie, another of Bane's agents, who stabbed him and left him comatose. He was found by Catwoman, who nursed him back to health in Hawaii while they waited for Magpie to sell the supervenom in a couple of days. Rekindling their love, Batman and Catwoman told each other that they loved one another before easily busting Magpie and getting back the supervenom. Bruce thanked Selina for everything, but she explained to him what love was, those who took care of you. Together, they agreed to have a new meeting place that wasn't the street or the boat. It would be the beach. Not wanting to screw up Batman's plans to defeat Bane, Alfred contacted his son and told him a lie that he had escaped Gotham safely. Batman then phoned Damian, telling him to go after Bane's crew. However, Flashpoint Batman managed to capture Damian, and as punishment for breaking Bane's rule, he sat the kid down in front of Alfred and made him watch as Bane snapped his grandfather's neck. In shock, Damian escaped and called the Bat family, but not even all of them ganging up together was enough to defeat Flashpoint Batman. However, Thomas sent Bruce a fake message saying that the family had won. Ignorant, Batman and Catwoman snuck into Gotham and Arkham Asylum, where their love worked together to finally defeat Bane. This moment was interrupted by Flashpoint Batman's entrance, who put a bullet into Batman. When he woke up, Flashpoint Batman set up Alfred's corpse in front of Bruce, sending him into an uncontrollable grief. As Batman headed to his final confrontation with his father, Catwoman set their secret plan in motion, revealing that they had stolen the ventriloquist sock puppet, Scarface. Without him, the insane ventriloquist was helpless, and he caved into the hero's demands to order the psycho pirate to stop mind-controlling everyone. Now, without superhuman aid, the Flashpoint Batman was finally defeated and sent to Arkham, where Bane broke his back. Later, Batman gave Gotham Girl a special kryptonite that allowed her to have powers without losing entire years of her life. She told Batman to marry Catwoman. The Bat and the Cat patrolled for one more night, agreeing that their union was legitimate without the need for a judge to make it official. Though the day was saved, the cost weighed heavily on everyone. Bruce had to learn how to do all the things that Alfred would have done for him on a daily basis, including buying groceries and playing with all the Bat pets. Meanwhile, Damian sunk even deeper into Reverse Flash's induced darkness, dealing with Nightwing's amnesia, who was like a father to him even before Bruce, and now the loss of Alfred. Bruce noticed this, but he was too hurt himself to be able to talk about it with his son. Thinly related to all this, Riddler began doing meth, which is just darkly funny. Alfred's last will and testament ordered the Bat family to take a night off and be together as a family. Bruce, Damian, Tim, Babs, Jason, and an amnesiac Rick joined together at a bar, where everyone told a touching story about Alfred, but everyone was so upset that they left after telling their individual tales. Meanwhile, Bruce seemed distant and emotionless, which perturbed everyone. Babs screamed at Bruce, begging him to show some emotion and to raise his son. When everyone left, Bruce broke down into tears. Year 19. This downward spiral came to a head on year 19, when Batman learned Damian had been using an illegal torture prison with his Teen Titans. Damian brutally punched his father, who told him that he loved him and that he had failed him as a father. In response, Damian tore off his chest emblem, saying he was no longer Robin and walking off in anger. In his usual emotionally stunted way, Batman's response was to give Damian all the space he needed. This year, Joker decided to make use of the fact that he knew Batman's identity. First, the Joker posed as the Designer, a supervillain who had helped Catwoman years ago to design the ultimate plan to steal Bruce Wayne's fortune. Fearing the plan would go into action, Catwoman transferred all of Bruce's money to her bank account, but she was shot by Joker's new girlfriend, Punchline. Punchline transferred all of Bruce's money to Joker, and drugged Lucius with Joker venom. Joker began the Joker War, in which he used Bruce's money and Batman's equipment to fund hordes of henchmen to cause destruction around Gotham. While Catwoman managed to steal Bruce's money and send it to Lucius, Batman pulled himself up by his bootstraps, shaking off his past grief and vowing to be a better Batman. He reunited the Bat family, convincing Rick to wear his Nightwing costume, allowing him to regain his memories and be Dick Grayson again. Plus, Batman honored Stephanie and Cassie by granting them bat symbols for their costumes, allowing them both to become Batgirls at the same time. Also, Barbara began acting as an oracle again, just like the good old days. While Joker's clown henchmen began the herding of the populace of Goth with plans of mass murder in mind, Batman had a final confrontation with Joker in Ace Chemicals, where Joker was originally born. After Joker taunted Batman by digging up Alfred's corpse and putting Joker venom in it, Harley strapped a bomb to herself and another to Joker. Thus, Batman was forced to chase after Harley in order to save her life, letting Joker finally die. However, Joker said, Arco Tenenbras, a post-hypnotic word placed in Bruce's head by his formative teacher, Dr. Captio, which forced Batman to drag Joker to safety. When he regained his wits, Batman went after Harley and saved her, as he guessed Joker freed himself and escaped on his own. The war was over, but Batman was now out of money and out of equipment. In his poorer state, Batman closed up Wayne Manor and moved to a small house in downtown Gotham. Because Catwoman sided with Batman so publicly during the war, she was now a target, so she and Batman decided to go on a 1-year break. However, their break extended for far longer than a year, as their relationship never managed to go back to normal again. After this, Ghostmaker, Bruce's rival from their training years, returned, joining the Bat family. At this juncture, Perpetua, creator of the multiverse, made herself known as the mastermind behind manipulating Luthor into building an ever bigger Legion of Doom army. Perpetua telepathically connected with everyone on Earth, and because more people leaned towards evil than good, she gained the power to rewrite the timeline so that the Justice League were no longer Earth's heroes. As part of her corrupting influence, Jim Gordon was turned into a villain and removed from the police force, leading to Harvey Bullock briefly replacing him. However, the League survived thanks to being rescued by a quintessence of the universe's biggest gods. Year 20. Arriving from the quintessence, the League attacked Perpetua and her army of Batman from the Dark Multiverse, using Dr. Manhattan's connective energy, aka anti-crisis energy. Perpetua struck back with direct crisis energy, and the clash almost burned out the sun. Ultimately, Wonder Woman hesitated, allowing Perpetua to overpower the heroes and take over the world, reshaping it into a nightmare. Batman and the entire Bat family were killed, but Batman had armed himself with a Black Power battery ring, which revived him as a zombie and allowed him to bring back his family as a zombie army, including a zombie Alfred. Meanwhile, the Batman Who Laughs transplanted his brain into the body of an alternate Bruce Wayne, who had turned himself into Dr. Manhattan, becoming the omnipotent Darkest Knight. He usurped Perpetua, getting himself into a fight with Wonder Woman, who ultimately killed him. In the end, all the damage attracted the attention of the Hands, the birthers of the multiverses. Inspired by Wonder Woman, they decided not to reboot everything, but to simply heal things by allowing the history to be remembered without any blocks. Plus, they expanded the current 52 Earths multiverse into an infinite one. This is where DC's Infinite Frontier era began, one haunted by the shadow of that misunderstood phrase, everything is canon. As I stated at the beginning of the video, this merely means anything can be canon. As Colin Kosher explained, quote, "There's still continuity that is rigid, or at least one we have to determine with some rigidity. Otherwise there's literally no story." End quote. This brand new, hopeful era of heroism began with Gotham being taken over again. This time it was done by Scarecrow, who pulled the greatest terrorist campaign of his career by manipulating Gotham's mayor into declaring vigilantes outlawed. Not wanting to deal with the newest mayor, Bullock resigned as a commissioner. Of course, Scarecrow was defeated, with some help from Gotham's newest commissioner, Renee Montoya, the Bat family's newest member, Harley Quinn, and the Batman of New York, aka Jace Fox, Lucius's second son. After defeating some QAnon cultists, all 5 Robins, Dick, Jason, Tim, Stephanie, and Damian, got together to discuss if being Robin had been worth it. Dick felt it carried too much nostalgia to judge accurately. Stephanie and Tim wondered if they'd peaked too early by being Robin, and Damian considered being Robin as a mere training ground before he became Batman, and Jason said being Robin probably saved him from becoming a kingpin of crime. However, the group was attacked by Jenny Wren, aka Anita Jean, Batman's first ward who lost her shot at being Robin and now wanted revenge. Unknown to her, she was being allowed to act as part of a test put forward by Batman to see if his children could survive without him. Jenny kidnaps every Robin's first villain and put them in a test where they could choose to let them die, and to pressure them even further, she kidnapped Tim and replaced him with a hard light construct that said things Tim had been holding in, like that he wished that the killer of his mother could face fatal justice, and it wasn't fair that Jason and Damian got away with murdering people because of their backgrounds. Things got so tense that Dick told Batman being a Robin wasn't a good thing. In the end, the Robins underwent a virtual simulation of what their lives would have been like if they hadn't become Robin. Dick would have become a secret agent until he overdosed with hypnosis. Damian would have ended up following Ra's al Ghul. Stephanie would have led the Teen Titans against all adult heroes, losing everyone's trust. Jason would have stolen cars and ended up in jail, and Tim would have just been a video game designer. The Robins understood that being Robin was worth it to catch each of their siblings, not for anything relating to Batman, and defeated Jenny. In Christmas, the Bat family had even more cause for celebration, as Tim came out as bisexual to Batman, who was happy to have him as a son. Year 21. Batman reunited with his old Batman Incorporated comrades and decided to restore the team. This time, however, they would be led by Ghostmaker. Later, a former hero named Geoforce murdered Ra's al Ghul for his crimes, prompting Talia and Damian to try and avenge their relative. However, after a lot of influence from Batman, Damian talked his mother out of murdering Geoforce, and, in a long overdue moment, Damian and Batman made amends, forgiving each other for everything and patrolling together again after 4 years of fighting. This year, the heroes learned of the looming threat of the Great Darkness, a force created at the beginning of time which opposed the light of God. It wasn't evil per se, more like an absence of good, but it was corrupted after the original crisis when one of its survivors, Pariah, made contact with the darkness, and his grief at having lost his universe corrupted it. Since then, the darkness had been corrupting individuals who caused crisis events for 13 years. Justice Incarnate, a league formed by members from all over the multiverse, summoned the Justice League to help fight Pariah and his Dark Army, made up of the Great Darkness-possessed villains such as Darkseid, Doomsday, Ares, and Spectre. Pariah's powers turned the League to ashes, officially causing the death of the Justice League! Of course, they were still alive, vanished to dream realms that kept them happy by showing them their biggest desires to siphon away their powers. Pariah initiated a crisis of his own, a dark crisis, where he attacked the main Earth and the skies turned red. Although the remaining heroes attempted to create a new generation of the Justice League with legacy members such as Superman's son of the Batman of New York, it took the power of every generation of heroes after rescuing the original League from their paradise worlds to turn Pariah's machine back on himself, sending him into a paradise illusion of his own. However, the darkness still lingered, as darkness often does, this time chained to Deathstroke. When all seemed lost, Black Adam shared his power with all of the heroes present, creating a Black Ad army just in time for the release of the hit movie Black Adam, which totally aged well. Afterward, Nightwing defeated Deathstroke and ended the crisis while also closing the long feud that began when Deathstroke debuted by attacking the Teen Titans so many years ago. Batman then met with Nightwing, who showed him that he'd kept the candle that was used in his Robin Oath ceremony 20 years ago. Batman broke the candle, saying that Dick had always been the light that had guided him throughout the years. Batman revealed that the Justice League had officially disbanded, and now Nightwing's Titans would lead the community. While telling Nightwing this, he and Batman met at Alfred's grave, which they hadn't visited together until now. Batman admitted that he and Dick lost something after Alfred passed, because Alfred helped keep up the lines of communications and convey all things Batman left unsaid. When Dick asked him what Alfred would have said, Bruce said that Dick saved him. That before Dick, every day was a little bit harder, and he knew just what he would have become without him. Dick responded that Bruce didn't know, and that he was a great judge of everyone's hearts except his own. Batman would have been fine without Robin. Bruce was humbled at Dick's capacity to see the best in everyone, the way he sought to help before he sought to punish. Bruce told Dick he was inspired by him, and that he was so proud his son had become the best of all of them. That he was sorry if Dick ever thought differently, if he had failed him, for every time he had pushed him away, but Dick responded that Bruce had never failed him. He took in an orphan when he could have turned his back on him, and Dick was simply trying to repay that kindness in every day of his life. In a heartfelt embrace, Dick told his dad that he loved him. After the global crisis, a more personal one popped up when the devil Nucha, who had been locked away since year 7, escaped his prison. Teaming up with Mother Soul, Ra's al Ghul's mother, Nucha corrupted Damian into attacking Batman and used a demon to temporarily revive Alfred. Can't they just leave Alfred's corpse alone? After the demon inside Alfred was exorcised, Alfred had a few moments before being exiled back to the afterlife, and he told Batman not to blame himself for his death, and that his parents missed him dearly. Afterward, Nucha killed Batman and possessed his corpse, using it to fight the entire Bat family in an epic battle. In the end, they transferred Nucha back into his body, but in order to revive Batman, Damian addressed the entire population of Gotham, asking each person to give up a part of their soul to save Batman. Thousands of people who had been saved by Batman's actions chanted, "We are Batman," relinquishing parts of their souls into the Dark Knight, and resurrecting him. In the chaos, Ra's al Ghul was somehow revived as well. Ra's immediately met with Batman, telling him that he had read Rorschach's journal and that Batman could save his father, Flashpoint Batman, if he used the remnant power of Dr. Manhattan to recreate the entire Flashpoint universe within a snow globe from Watchmen's universe. Batman did so for the sake of Thomas's life, but Thomas awoke in the Flashpoint universe only to reject it, feeling he had been wrong in trying to stop Bruce from being Batman, that Bruce's timeline was the real one, and that his was just a mistake that would get erased, meaning none of his actions ever really mattered. In the meantime, Thomas grew close to Dexter, Two-Face's son, who became akin to a Robin to him. Thomas's rejection began tearing apart the snow globe, threatening space and time outside of it as well. However, Batman kept watch, having faith in his father. Ultimately, Thomas accepted his reality when he realized undoing it would make it so that Dexter never existed, and the death of a single child was equal to Bruce's in his mind. Nothing matters wasn't the right way of thinking. In fact, everything mattered. After learning of Alfred's death, Joker knew there would be no failsafe to stop the robot that Batman's backup personality had built, so he created a Batman scheme to force the Batman of Zur-En-Arrh to come out. I thought we heard the last of him. He started poisoning Penguin with mercury and tipping off Gotham's superheroes and the police to the Penguin's every move, driving him to the point where Joker convinced the Penguin to retire. In order to do this, Penguin released a video stating he would murder anyone in Gotham that had inherited more than $5 million unless they gave up their wealth. When Batman confronted him, Penguin simulated his death with a pill concocted by the Joker. Although, in reality, Penguin simply started over life with a lower profile. The news reported that Batman had killed Penguin, awakening Batman's robot, Failsafe, which he had designed during Year 4. Failsafe, acting under its orders to stop Batman if he ever killed anyone, attacked the Caped Crusader. Unlocking the memories of his backup personality building the robot, Batman summoned Zur-En-Arrh to stop Failsafe, but it wasn't enough. Failsafe zapped Batman to an alternate Earth, where Bruce Wayne was dead and a man named Red Mask controlled Gotham's corrupt cops. Batman defeated Ghostbreaker, that reality's version of Ghostmaker. It even rhymes, but he chopped off Batman's hand. Wounded, Batman reached Red Mask, who revealed that he was this reality's version of Joker. Completely insane, Red Mask tapped into the multiverse and came into contact with the minds of every Joker, turning the ones who were normal people evil, such as the main Joker back in Year 1, turning the silly prankster Jokers into the murderous ones, and turning Jed Jokers back into living ones. Batman traveled the multiverse, meeting Michael Keaton Batman, Red Rain Batman, Gotham by Gaslight Batman, 1930s Batman, Batman from the animated series, Arkhamverse Batman, Batman Beyond, Kingdom Come Batman, Injustice Batman, Adam West Batman and Dark Knight Returns Batman. That's a lot of Batmans. Our Batman warned the rest that their Jokers were back and more dangerous. That's right, the Tim Burton movie could finally get a sequel. But anyway, the Dark Knight Returns Batman gave ours a new robotic hand to replace his severed one, before he finally arrived to his home reality. After this adventure, Batman was exhausted. When he received a notification that Wayne Manor alarms had been tripped, he rushed to the mansion. Fortunately, all was well. The Bat family had ambushed Batman with a surprise meal, and Bruce, Tim, Jason, Cassie, Steph, Damian, Duke, Babs, and Dick all celebrated in each other's company. Despite this, Bruce was unable to relax and had a panic attack. Zur-En-Arrh was now loose in his mind, and in his multiversal journey had collected the Zur-En-Arrhs of all the Batmans, preparing an army for the eventual mental takeover. Year 22. A lame Justice League villain named Insomnia put the entire world to sleep, inducing horrifying nightmares, and eventually brought the nightmares out into the real world. The ghost superhero Deadman possessed Batman while he was sleeping to fight Insomnia, exhausting Bruce so much that by the crisis's end he stayed in a comatose state for 2 months. While he slept, Catwoman initiated a radically progressive plan that saw violent crime in Gotham drop by 75%. Catwoman trained all the top Gotham supervillains as henchmen to become expert burglars who could pull off crimes on their own without any murder, mayhem, or costumery. As part of Catwoman's program,
Only rich people were targeted, and 15% of the loot got donated to charity. After Batman awakened, Catwoman called a meeting of the Bat family and asked them to let her program go forward unfettered. Tim, Steph, Signal, Red Hood, and Batwoman were sympathetic and cautiously optimistic, but Batman and Damian wouldn't have it. Catwoman and Batman argued bitterly, leaving everyone on the edge. Tim tried to reason with Batman, but he was being corrupted by Zur, so he refused to listen to reason. He and Damian isolated themselves, becoming a Bat family of two. Bruce instructed Damian to begin attending high school, where his principal was secretly Damian's former teacher in the League of Assassins, and his first period teacher was secretly Shush, a new villain. Shush had been Hush's surgical apprentice at the hospital, where she covered for his absences when he was out being a supervillain. When Hush was caught, Shush was fired, and eventually she blamed Batman for everything, deciding to retake her voice from Hush by becoming a villain. Eventually, Batman refocused his attention to his new war with Catwoman. Out of his mind, he beat up all of his sons and daughters, culminating in him kidnapping Red Hood and combining a special machine with fear serum to make it so that whenever his adrenaline spiked and he was about to do something dangerous, Jason would have intense fear and turn into a blubbering weakling. Batman told Jason this was for his own good and to quit his life of violence. After this, even Damian saw something was terribly wrong with his dad. Meanwhile, the immortal villain Vandal Savage moved to Gotham, where he purchased Wayne Manor out of Bruce's relatively poor hands. He took over Selena's operation and started using her burglars to steal fragments of the meteor that once granted him immortality to summon a large parent meteor to Earth. Thankfully, Red Hood powered through his fears and piloted a bat plane into the approaching meteor, saving everyone's lives and somehow escaping unharmed. After this explosion, Catwoman gained 9 lives. Now being a lonely bat family of one, Batman dealt with the arrival of the Orgums, an Arabic family who used to own Gotham, preceded by the Arkhams and used to command Ra's al Ghul, as well as being responsible for killing JFK, Gandhi, and Lincoln. The Orgums used Asmer demons to turn people into monsters via musical vibrations while they purchased Arkham Asylum's plot of land and turned it into their new base. They planned a takeover, corrupting a Two-Face that had just gotten his insanity fixed through therapy. The Orgums unleashed the Thelamus engine, a reality-warping device they had buried under Gotham centuries ago. As Batman attempted to shut it down, bombs exploded at Orgum Place, crumbling the main building to the ground in flames. Orgum counselor Shavhad Urhad addressed the citizenry of Gotham while using her meta-powers of persuasion combined with the amplification of the Thelamus engine to reconfigure Gotham's grand design and make the population violently anti-Dark Knight. Meanwhile, Prince Arzin Orgum dosed Batman with an Asmer, which forced him to engage with Barbados, who had been planted inside his own head by a returned Dr. Hurt. As a result, Batman turned demonic. He ended up chained and trapped in the ruins of the old Arkham Asylum, and a public execution was planned. Catwoman sneaked into Batman's cell to initiate a plan to save him, despite them not being in the best of terms. Catwoman kissed the hallucinating Batman before sneaking back out. With this kiss, Catwoman had secretly dosed Batman with a poison ivy-made concoction that caused Batman to be in a state of near death until adrenaline revived him. On execution day, before a rabid cheering audience of thousands, a defeated Batman was marched to the gallows. The gallows lever was pulled and Batman was hanged. Selena retrieved the comatose body from Orgum troops, injecting him with another poison ivy bolus to stabilize him. Despite Batman's escape, their Thelamus engine made the entire world forget the Dark Knight ever existed, except for Batgirl, Cassie Cain. The catatonic Batman was delivered to Talia, who looked for him for months. After a storm, the pair ended up in a mystical shores located in a place between places. There, Bruce drank a psychedelic tea that made him confront Dr. Hurt, Barbados, and the Asmer demon in his mind. Batman then reawakened, born again with new purpose. He approached a terrified Hurt, who had expected a victorious Barbados to emerge instead of Batman. After putting the Hurt on Hurt, Batman returned with Talia, and they spent a month training in the desert with the League of Assassins. During this time, he began sleeping with Talia again, and they got along very lovingly. Eventually, with a sweet kiss on Talia's cheek, Bruce left the desert behind and made his return to Gotham, publicly known by blasting a giant pyrotechnic bat signal on the side of the Ogham Tower. The Orgams unleashed their greatest soldier, Shadow Angel, who marched with an army of Asthma-infused warriors against Batman. The Dark Knight ultimately won the war for Gotham's soul against the Orgams, something he couldn't have done without his allies: Nightwing, Oracle, Batgirl, Azrael, Private Detective Gordon, Commissioner Question, Catwoman, Mr. Freeze, Two-Face, Cheshire, Cheshire Cat, Poison Ivy, Solomon Grundy, Iko Hasegawa, the Ten-Eyed Man, and Sorrow. However, Bruce was still corrupted by Zur-En-Arrh, continued operating as a one-man Bat family. Year 23. Batman realized that Joker had kidnapped his old thievery mentor, Grey Shadow. He tracked him to a mansion decorated with portraits of his former teachers. As Batman approached Joker, Grey Shadow escaped, but Joker said Dr. Captio's post-hypnotic trigger word, Arco Tenebros, which drew out Zur-En-Arrh from within Batman's psyche. Backed by dozens of alternate universe Zur-En-Arrhs, the primary alternate persona violently pummeled Joker, intent on killing him. Meanwhile, inside his own mind, Batman's psyche battled dozens of alternate Zur-En-Arrhs. Despite winning the subconscious battle, Batman remained blacked out and the primary Zur-En-Arrh controlled his body. During this period, the primary Zur-En-Arrh followed the Arco Tenebris command, which made him rescue Captio and give him the necessary tools to take over Blackgate Penitentiary. Immediately afterwards, the primary Zur-En-Arrh battled and defeated the other Zur-En-Arrhs, in which he went to his cabin where he enacted the Terminus Project, spreading himself from Batman's subconscious and uploading himself into the failsafe robot. Zur-En-Arrh lived. After waking up, Batman was defeated and imprisoned alongside Joker in Blackgate. Joker told Batman his Year 1 origin story, specifically how he killed his doppelgangers and subsumed all three Joker personas, upon which Dr. Daniel Captio taught him how to separate and control his schizophrenia using a proto-Zur-En-Arrh method. Meanwhile, Zur-En-Arrh declared himself the new Batman and began killing low-level hoods. He told the Bat family and Superman that he was the real Bruce, that his human body was destroyed, at which point he uploaded his consciousness into Failsafe's body. Only Damian believed him and became his uneasy Robin. The real Batman broke out of his cell to find Vandal Savage incarcerated as well. Vandal Savage told Batman that Zur-En-Arrh had taken control of Wayne Manor and the Batcave beneath it. Zur-En-Arrh's robot minions knocked out Batman before he could complete his escape, however. Warden Daniel Captio addressed a bound Bruce, telling him that Joker learned about Failsafe when he attacked the Bat family and infiltrated the Batcave during Year 14. Joker then assisted Penguin in faking his own death 2 years ago, knowing that it would trigger Failsafe's response. Ever since meeting Zur-En-Arrh in Year 4, Joker had done increasingly violent acts like killing Jason or crippling Barbara to try and bring the alternate persona out, as he felt it was the purest and best form of Batman. Later, when a captured Punchline was brought into Blackgate, Batman started a riot that allowed him and Vandal Savage to escape. Savage immediately did TV interviews to pump up his public image, after which Zur arrested Renee Montoya and appointed Savage as new commissioner. At his forest Batcave, Zur-En-Arrh showed Damian 6 finished robots, each uploaded with an alternate universe Zur-En-Arrh personality. Upon learning this, Damian finally realized that Batman wasn't his dad. Damian struck out at Zur-En-Arrh, but the latter easily captured Damian, quickly replacing him with a new Robin, who was actually a younger clone of Bruce. Because it was inevitable, Zur-En-Arrh domed off the entire city with a giant force field, turning the conflict citywide again. At an old Wayne family cabin in the woods, Bruce reunited with his family, apologizing for turning them away for the umpteenth time, though this time it wasn't actually his fault since Zur was corrupting him. Bruce showed Jason a Lazarus residue left there after Vandal's meteor exploded, telling him that he discovered that Failsafe would shut down if he killed someone. Thus, the plan was for Jason to actually sacrifice his life in combat against Zur-En-Arrh, thus causing the Failsafe body to power off. Jason's new costume would inject him with the resin, bringing him back to life. The plan worked, and Zur shut down during a confrontation in Blackgate. Caprio tried to gain the edge on Batman by using a hypnotic trigger word on him, but the Bat family kicked his ass. 2 weeks later, Batman finally found his young clone beating up bad guys on Crime Alley. Apprehensive at first, the clone was calmed down by Batman, who gave him a hug and brought him to the Batacombs beneath a downtown brownstone in Gotham's gentrified Fort Greene neighborhood. After a battery of tests by Bruce, the clone learned that he was rapidly aging and would soon die. After gaining some more of Zur's blacked-out memories, Bruce visited Wayne Enterprises, where he had accessed a series of secret offshore bank accounts that he had set up while under his Zur-en-Awe persona. Accounts that totaled well over $3 billion. Bruce was once again filthy stinking rich. Bruce returned home to find Damian, Tim, and his clone waiting for him. The clone, now a little older than Bruce, had severed his own hand as a gift to replace Bruce's robot hand. It was grafted onto Bruce's arm. Bruce honored his clone's final request, bringing him to the Wayne burial plot at Savage Manor, formerly Wayne Manor, where he died. A few days later, Commissioner Vandal Savage summoned Batman to the top of Police HQ via the bat signal. He told Batman that he could still operate as Gotham's protector, so long as he worked for his GCPD. Batman destroyed the bat signal and punched Commissioner Savage in the face, telling him no deal. After that, Bruce purchased a mansion and all surrounding blocks in the center of Gotham. Bruce invited Dick, Babs, Damian, Tim, Duke, Stephanie, and Cassie to check it out. He told them that it was going to establish affordable housing space for charitable organizations and green spaces all around the main structure, which he officially dubbed Pennyworth Mansion. They would all live together now under one roof. A few days later, Selena showed up. Bruce told her about his clone, and she told him about one of her recent adventures. Selena and Bruce lovingly reunited, after which he gave her a tour of Pennyworth Mansion and told her about all what he had in store for the future. They accepted that there was probably no happy end in their future, and decided to make the most of the short windows of happiness they could get together. Not too long after, the Justice League was reestablished. And with this, we are up to date with Bruce's present adventures, where Bruce is currently 43 years old. However, what about his future? We have gotten more than a few glimpses at it, including a look at how Batman will die. First, Wonder Woman has a daughter, Lizzie Price. In turn, Catwoman discovers Bruce made her pregnant, and together they have a baby girl named Helena Wayne. Meanwhile, Dick has a daughter of his own, Eliana Grayson. Not long after, Batman's evil satellite, Brother Eye, attacks New York City with an army of cyborg zombies, taking over much of North America and beginning a Cold War against humanity. Gotham City cloaks itself, renaming itself Neo-Gotham. Barbara retires as Batgirl, becoming Commissioner of Police like her father. Meanwhile, Dick becomes Mayor of Bloodhaven, Luke Fox, formerly Batwing, becomes Mayor of Neo-Gotham, and Supergirl becomes President of the United States. Batman meets and befriends wannabe teenage superhero Carrie Kelly, who he quickly indoctrinates as the new Robin. Carrie will only be Robin for a short time, but will remain close with Bruce and the Bat family afterwards. In this period, Bruce begins using a cane to get around, and he builds an AI called Alfred, which he connects to the Bat computer. Damian makes a deal with Dr. Hurt to ensure Neo-Gotham's protection, and dons his 666 trenchcoat costume, becoming a new Batman. Damian will continue to operate alongside his father, giving us a period with two Batmen. Not long after, Diana becomes Queen of Themyscira, and Lizzie Prince graduates from being Wonder Girl, but instead of becoming a new Wonder Woman, adopts the name Trinity, and goes on adventures with Damian as Batman and John as Superman. Sadly, the relationship between Bruce and Damian becomes strained. Damian quits his post within the Bat family and moves to Europe, with no plans of returning to Gotham. Bruce also has an abject falling out with the Justice League. He won't communicate with them for many years to come. Later, Joker is seemingly killed in an explosion while fighting Bruce. Joker's meager remains are cremated, and the Clown Prince of Crime is interred at Neo-Gotham's funeral home. With him gone, Batman now has a laser focus that he hasn't had in decades. He spends the next couple of weeks busting villains left and right, putting all his remaining rivals behind bars. When arresting Dr. Phosphorus, the villain exposes Batman to a ton of deadly radiation. Although he doesn't know it now, Batman has contracted cancer. Batman is then defeated by the Banes, a murderous gang of venom-addicted Bane worshippers. Afterwards, Batman retires his bat costume and builds a new high-tech one with a sentient AI that can control the suit if need be. Bruce realizes that the suit is dangerous, and only because it's damaged is Bruce able to take it off. Later, while fighting a Joker-inspired gang known as the Jokers, with a Z, Batman has a heart attack and decides to retire. When he tells the news to Damian, his son becomes worried because Ra's is planning something big and wears his dad's Batman's AI suit. However, the suit damages Damian's psyche and destroys his sanity, ending up with Damian joining Ra's in the League of Assassins after Ra's convinces him that Bruce is responsible for the ongoing Brother Eye Cold War. Years later, Ra's al Ghul dies of natural causes and Damian becomes the leader of the League of Assassins. After finishing a new sleek flying costume, Bruce sees one more chance to be a functional crime fighter. Despite being in his mid-60s, Bruce comes out of retirement to become Batman once again. He tries to rescue a kidnapped woman, but barely manages when his heart gives out again. Ashamed, Batman realizes that he's well past his prime and goes back into retirement. Then, a young man named Terry McGinnis and his girlfriend Dana are attacked by the Jokers. Terry leads them outside of Neo Gotham, ending up at Wayne Manor. There, he snoops around and discovers the Batcave, but Bruce chases him off. Terry arrives home to find his father has been murdered by Derek Powers, aka Blight. Terry immediately returns to Wayne Manor and begs Bruce to avenge his dad. Bruce refuses, so Terry steals the experimental flying batsuit and defeats Blight, becoming the new Batman. Later, a teenager named Nyssa, who lives in Neo Gotham's poorest neighborhood of Crown Point and feels that Batman overlooks her community, decides to take matters into her own hands and becomes the new Batgirl for just a single adventure. Terry's mother, Mary, goes missing while traveling outside of Neo Gotham. She is presumed dead, killed by Brother Eye's forces. Terry becomes his brother Matt's legal guardian. Terry then fights a seemingly reincarnated Joker himself before discovering he's actually Tim Drake, who's being controlled by the Joker's essence, which had been put into a microchip and attached to him. Batman bests the fake Joker and his gang, saving Tim and in the process restoring him back to normal. So far, this might have sounded familiar from the Batman Beyond TV show, but this is when the comics begin to tell new stories. When Neo Gotham's veil is damaged, Brother Eye is free to attack the city. Brother Eye turns the majority of Earth's metahumans into mindless cyborg drones. Bruce, Terry, and the others fight a guerrilla-style war against Brother Eye's hordes. Panicked, Bruce cobbles together a one-way time-traveling belt for Terry, instructing him to go back into the past to avoid this horrific Brother Eye future. The Justice League is defeated by Brother Eye, allowing his forces to take control of most of the Earth. After Bruce is attacked, Terry comes to believe that Bruce has died. In reality, a badly injured Bruce had been rushed off by aid workers to a nearby triage tent. Batman activates the time belt. However, it fails, and he winds up teleported a few miles away. Batman is injured by Brother Eye's cyborgs before he's collected by the hallucination-inducing supervillain known as Spellbinder, who brainwashes Terry, erasing his memories and making him totally subservient. Brother Eye now controls the planet. Bruce and Terry are believed dead. Just when it seems that all hope is lost, a new Batman arrives seemingly out of nowhere. It's Tim Drake from the Parachromatic timeline. Thanks to the chronal machinations of the new Batman, the veil is brought back, which allows for Brother Eye and his forces to be expelled from a recloaked Neo Gotham. Later, Tim and Commissioner Barbara Gordon discover the missing Terry McGinnis. They defeat Spellbinder, releasing his hold over Terry's mind. Back at the Batcave, Tim explains everything to Terry. He gives the mantle of Batman back to Terry and then departs. The next day, Tim gets sucked into a brightly lit portal, seemingly erased from being for the time anomaly that he is. Terry then rescues Bruce, but returns with dire news that the original Joker is back. Afterwards, Terry meets Damian, who is jealous about Terry acting as the surrogate son to Bruce. Damian unleashed nukes against the planet before he stopped, and realizes he was having a bout of insanity. After that, he and his father happily embrace each other. because what is a few nukes among the Bat family? Following that, Terry's brother Matt dons Damian's old Robin costume and becomes the new Robin. However, Babs enters her NGCPD office to find Joker waiting with a gun pointed at her. Babs dodges the shot and chases Joker away. Joker then single-handedly does something Terry could never do. He shuts down the Jokers overnight, killing off most of their members and orchestrating the murder of their main weapons and costume supplier. Joker then forms a new gang out of the few remaining Jokers, calling them the Throwbacks. Eventually, Batman and Robin take down the Throwbacks, but run into Joker, who has upgraded one of the poor Throwbacks into his own burly cyborg monstrosity known as Joker Beyond. Dick intervenes, helping Batman defeat Joker Beyond. However, the Joker captures Robin and tortures him to confirm that he's connected to Bruce Wayne and to obtain entry to the Batcave. After taunting the Bat family live on TV, Joker heads to Wayne Manor with his captive in tow. While Batman and Dick take down the Throwbacks, Joker enters the Batcave and shoots Elena in the arm. Joker fights Bruce, who gains the upper hand by grabbing his opponent's gun. Joker tries to goad Bruce into crossing the line he's never crossed, but before Bruce can do something he'll regret, Joker has a heart attack and drops dead. Afterwards, Matt quits being Robin. Later, Terry is shot by False Face, which gives him temporary amnesia. In his absence, Elena Grayson becomes the new Batwoman until Terry recovers. Later, Bruce discovers Warren McGinnis's childhood journal, which details an encounter with a time-traveling Batman Beyond that led to a butterfly effect, culminating decades later with events leading to Terry becoming Batman. Realizing this timeline must be preserved, a time-traveling Booster Gold and Skeets arrive from 2018 and take Terry to Bat Year 17, where he saves his father's life. Bruce shows up as Batman, but Booster and Skeets distract him from spotting Terry. Back in the future, Terry is invited into the Justice League, and he eventually reunites with his missing mother. Around 2052, Helena Wayne becomes the new Batwoman, sharing the role of protector of Neo Gotham with Terry. The same year, an elderly Bruce becomes gravely ill. Selena accompanies Bruce to the doctor's office, where he is diagnosed with terminal cancer, which stems back to the fight he had previously had with Dr. Phosphorus several decades ago. With his cancer worsening and feeling deathly ill, Bruce ventures out and purchases a kitten, which he leaves in an old Batmobile as a gift for Selena. Soon after, Bruce deteriorates and quickly becomes bedridden. Despite being unable to communicate, Bruce is comforted by friends and family, including Selena, Helena, Dick, Babs, Jason, Duke, Stephanie, Jean-Paul, Carrie, and either Tim or Damian. In New Year's Eve, the Batcomputer gets corrupted, gains sentience, and takes control of Neo Gotham, and, calling itself the Living Gotham, overloads Bruce's pacemaker. Terry McGinnis enters the Batcave to find the elderly Bruce crumpled on the floor, bleeding from his chest. Bruce muses about the murder of his parents, and opens up about a failed adventure when he was in his late 60s, and tells Terry that he is the quintessential Batman. Bruce then tragically dies in Terry's arms. Later, the spirits of Bruce Wayne gets mixed up in the afterlife, and begins haunting Neo Gotham. Catching wind of the supernatural situation, Zatanna, Erdogan, and Raven Rose, Zatanna's protege, chat with Batman's ghost. After giving him a sense of awareness, the trio performs an exorcism to give Bruce eternal peace once and for all. And there you have it, a lifetime of Batman, finally cracked. 84 years of comics converted to 74 years in the life of Bruce Wayne. A puzzle seemingly too complex for any mind, now finally understandable. Only until next Wednesday, of course. By the ever-changing nature of comics, which will never stop coming out, chances are that this video will be outdated by the time it will come out. But that is the beauty of comics, not their folly. Once again, I want to emphasize that this was possible only thanks to Colin Kosher's efforts, and he deserves all the credit, as well as my intrepid narrator, Doc. Until the next reboot, thank you for watching.